Chapter 1819. Pearls Covered in Dust. Are you traitors worthy? Princess Rukin was furious. She immediately went to her old master to demonstrate her power after submitting to her new master. If one were to talk about being ungrateful, then this was a living example. The curly-bearded scholar smiled happily. Regardless of whether your highness agrees or not, following his highness the second prince is obviously better than following you. For the sake of our friendship, let's cancel the contract we signed in the past. Dream on. The bearded scholar shook his head. Your highness misunderstands. I am not making a request. I am merely informing you. Princess Rukin laughed in anger. He, do you really think my title as a princess is undeserved? You have violated the contract. You must immediately return the divine stones. Otherwise, I will immediately send you to prison. She was extremely furious. Anyone who was bitten by their own dog would not be happy. Your highness is naturally not undeserved, but that is only for today. Tomorrow, after the ruins of you the Great, your highness will be nothing. The bearded scholar laughed recklessly. No matter who became the crown prince, there would be no place for the princess. Banishing her from the Due dynasty would be the lightest punishment. What would be the use of her arrest warrant then? Emperor Wu Hen sighed. They had indeed dared to come because they had something to rely on. Anger and sorrow flashed through her eyes. The sorrow of the weak was that anyone could step on them in times of danger, even those who had once respected them as gods. I will kill you. Princess Rukin was so angry that her eyes turned red and tears flowed out. She only wanted to avoid being slaughtered by the royal family. She only wanted to take revenge for her deceased mother and uncle. Why did everyone come to bully her? Forget about the second brother. Even an insignificant person who had once controlled her life and death had humiliated her. The second prince waved his fan and said calmly, Sister, they are my people now. You have to ask me before you kill them. As he waved his fan, silver needles flew out and circled around her. His determination was evident, as if he wanted to fight at all costs. Emperor Wu Hen mourned silently. One wrong move and they had lost the entire game. They had misjudged the intensity of the fight for the throne, causing them to be severely unprepared. Princess Rukin slowly closed her eyes. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly as she took a few deep breaths. Only then did her heaving chest slowly calm down. With a trembling but firm voice, she said, Did you come here today to see me make a fool of myself? You were destined to become a joke after you rejected me last time. Your brother couldn't be bothered to look at it, nor did he care to look at it. The second prince closed his folding fan and slapped it against his palm. He looked mockingly at the remaining 15 people behind her. I will also give you a chance to choose. The building is about to collapse, and the ship is capsized. Where will you go? If you're willing to follow me, come forward. I'll guarantee your safety. If you're unwilling, you'll be my #1 enemy in the ruins of you the Great. Eliminating you will be my #1 priority. The real purpose of his trip was to poach the remaining 15 people. Princess Rukin's eyes widened as she shouted hysterically, How dare you! The second prince ignored him, as if he hadn't heard anything. He just stared at the remaining 15 people without blinking. You only have 10 breaths of time. 1. Whoosh, at the very beginning, one person left the group and arrived behind the second prince in a flash. He lowered his head, not daring to meet Princess Rukin's eyes. The second prince's lips curled up. Filled with charm and threat, he said, 2. The first person's betrayal was like a meteor crashing to the ground, dealing a devastating blow to the remaining 15 people. People left the group one after another, standing behind the second prince. Seeing this, Princess Rukin was powerless to stop them. Their hearts were theirs. It was useless to force them to stay. She closed her beautiful eyes with difficulty, and tears fell like rain. She said in a trembling voice, If you're willing to leave, then leave. The moment she said that, the last few people who insisted on leaving also wavered. After a dozen people left, there were only 2 people left behind Princess Rukin. One of them was Yi Lang, and the other was Yi He. They were wandering brothers that Princess Rukin had taken in many years ago. Are the 2 of you sure? The second prince was overjoyed. He shot a hostile gaze at the 2 remaining people. Yi Lang and Yi He had determined expressions. They stood behind Princess Rukin like withered trees, unwavering. He, remember the 2 of them. The second prince squeezed the folding fan in his hand, not hiding his cold expression. Enter the ruins of you the Great. If you find the 2 of them, kill them without mercy. The curly-bearded scholar smiled sinisterly. I will treat the 2 loyal dogs well later. The fight for the position of crown prince had ended before it had even begun. Princess Rukin's tears fell like rain. What she received was not the second prince's sympathy or pity, but deep mockery. At that moment, a palace maid hurried over, saying in fear and trepidation, "Your Highness, the 6th prince has arrived." Princess Rukin let out a bitter laugh. What was the point of him coming? Everything was meaningless. Tell him to return, Princess Rukin said, completely disheartened. I have troubled him during this period of time. Emperor Wuhan wanted to stop her, but he withdrew his hand in midair. The situation was already hopeless. It was no longer important whether Su Yu was here or not. The palace maid ran over to report. Sister, why did you do this in the first place? If you had agreed to lend the people to me, I would have owed you a favor. Now you have nothing. The second prince was in high spirit. He clasped his hands behind his back, coldly mocking. One must know one's limitations. If one sets an unrealistic goal, one will miss the most suitable opportunity. Remember this, sister. He had gotten what he wanted, and he was satisfied. Unexpectedly, the 6th prince, Su Yu, walked over with his hands behind his back. Seeing the situation in the courtyard from afar, he frowned slightly. Sister, what is the meaning of the palace maid's message? Princess Rukin did not look at him. To be precise, her dull and listless eyes could not see anyone. I have no one else to use. 6th brother, you need not worry about the fight for the nation's fate. Princess Rukin smiled sadly. Su Yu's gaze swept past the second prince, then the familiar faces behind him. He roughly understood what had happened. His brows relaxed, and he walked over to rub her head. I was wondering what it was. So there are 20 people missing. Princess Rukin was at her lowest point in life. She could not help but throw herself into his arms, crying loudly. 20 people are all I have. I have nothing now. Su Yu really felt like a younger sister to this sometimes muddle-headed little princess. Hearing this, he laughed. Have you forgotten that I said I would find help for you? Emperor Wuhan's eyes flashed, and he revealed a shocked expression. A few days ago, Su Yu had gone out on a trip, saying that he was looking for help. However, there was no definite news, and he had thought that he had returned in failure. Princess Rukin lifted her head abruptly, her eyes filled with a strange glow. She said in shock, Really? How much help did you find? Her heart was filled with anticipation, and she looked at Su Yu without blinking. Her heart had stopped beating. The second prince's expression turned serious. What kind of help was it? 1. Su Yu had only found a divine warrior. Princess Rukin's crystalline eyes quickly dimmed. She looked like she was crying and laughing at the same time. 1. You have done your best. Thank you, brother Su Yu. At the critical juncture of her life, at least there was someone who had not abandoned her. Emperor Wuhan let out a deep sigh. The hope in her heart was immediately extinguished. She laughed self-mockingly. Now that things had come to this, who would still be willing to board their sinking ship? The second prince felt relieved and laughed. 6th brother, you're really good at surprising people. Unfortunately, this is probably the last time. After the ruins of Yu the Great, you'll have to say goodbye to the dynasty. Su Yu ignored his words, as well as his people. Without waiting for him to finish, Su Yu laughed and wiped away Princess Rukin's tears. It is true that I only found one help, but he used his connections to find some people. Although not many, it is better than nothing. Buzz, Princess Rukun trembled lightly in his arms. Her chest rose and fell violently like waves, each higher than the last, pressing down on Suyu. The soft and warm pressure caused Suyu to push her away in embarrassment. Emperor Wuhan's pupils shrank, and his body trembled violently. He said in shock, "Where are they?" "Outside the manor." Suyu called out, "Elder, please come in and talk." "Haha, thanks to the sixth prince, this is the first time I have seen the splendor of the imperial palace." A loud, powerful voice came from outside the manor. Divine light suddenly appeared in front of Suyu, and a blind, emaciated old man appeared. Prince Wuhan was the first to see the man clearly. His expression changed drastically, and he shouted in shock, "The Emperor of Ichi! It's you!" In terms of the deep roots of the emperors among the people, the rest of them combined could not compare to the Emperor of Ichi. She had visited him as early as 3 years ago, trying to persuade him to support Princess Rukun. But this old man knew her value better than anyone else, and it was extremely difficult to convince him. The last time he visited, he had grown tired of her persuasion and had directly asked her to leave, causing Emperor Wuhan to lose all face. She had never dreamed that after 3 years of fruitless persuasion, he would be persuaded by Suyu in one go. The Emperor of Ichi glanced at him and ignored him. Instead, he stepped forward and cupped his fists at Suyu. This was the attitude of an equal. "Your Highness, I have brought them here. Do you want to inspect them?" Suyu looked at Princess Rukun and Emperor Wuhan, and said, "Let them come in, and let them inspect them." The old man nodded, and the Emperor of Ichi said calmly, "Come in." Thump, thump. It was as if there was an earthquake, and the tea on the stone table in the courtyard rippled. A large group of young strong men of different races, dressed in the same dark purple armor, surged into Rukun's manor like an army entering a city. If not for the presence of the two emperors, Princess Rukun would have thought that there was a mutiny. Taking a closer look at the newcomers, apart from the fact that they were all young and wearing the same armor, all of their cultivations were at the peak of the overlord level. There were more than 130 of them. Looking at the shocking scene, Emperor Wuhan and Princess Rukun were both overjoyed. The Emperor of Ichi said regretfully, "Your Highness, you came late, and gave me only 2 days to prepare. In my haste, I could only gather this group. If it had been a year and a half earlier, I could have easily invited 200 of them." Half of what he said was true, and the other half was modesty. He had long planned to serve an emperor, so how could he not have prepared the people in advance? However, he did not expect that the person he would choose to serve would be Princess Rukun, who was the least favored. If he had known this would happen, he would have used his connections to gather another 70 or 80 people who met the requirements. It would not have been difficult at all. Chapter 1820. It's not a small number. It's not a small number at all. Princess Rukun had already wiped away her tears. Her eyes were like luminous pearls, shining with a dazzling light of surprise. 130 people, and all of them are peak overlords. Although their numbers are slightly less than eldest brothers, their quality is definitely superior. There were quite a few glazed crystal overlords in the opponent's camp. Overall, the two were equally matched. Emperor Wuhan was so excited that he almost burst into tears. The heavens had taken pity on him, to receive such powerful support. Compared to the initial 20 weak people, the number had increased by 7 to 8 times, and they were almost on par with the eldest prince. He looked at the Emperor of Wenqi gratefully and said incoherently, "It's enough, it's completely enough. Emperor of Wenqi, I, Wuhan, will remember this great favor." However, the Emperor of Wenqi did not care about the two of them at all, not even bothering to acknowledge them. He blushed, embarrassed by Su Yu's words. He cupped his fists and apologized. "I really wasn't prepared. It was Princess Rukun who would be assisting me. Please forgive me, Your Highness." Su Yu frowned. How could it be as easy as you make it sound? I thought the Emperor was a calm person, so I didn't warn you. I didn't expect you to be so careless and not give it your all. Princess Rukin and Emperor Wuhan were so worried that they wanted to cover Su Yu's mouth immediately. That's enough, don't say any more. They couldn't ask for such a powerful support from the Emperor of One Qi. What if the other party got angry and left in a fit of anger by criticizing and grumbling in front of everyone? Unexpectedly, the Emperor of One Qi, who had been indifferent to them, seemed to have a completely different attitude towards Su Yu. He bowed again and said apologetically, "Your Highness, you have wronged me. I also realized that there were not enough people, so I specially took out the purple demon armor from the storage and equipped everyone." Princess Rukin was shocked again. Staring at the purple-black armor on them, she said in shock, "Is that the rumored #1 divine armor of the Empire of Diu, the purple demon armor? I heard that after wearing it, it can greatly increase the wearer's speed of absorbing divine energy and physical strength. It can increase one's cultivation by more than half. The market price of this armor is 20,000 divine stones, and it has never been sold before." Emperor Wu Hen was shocked as well. Then, he was overjoyed. She had heard of the famous purple demon armor before. It was a supreme-grade armor forged by the One Qi Weapon Alliance to arm its own members. When a peak overlord wore it, their battle prowess would be on par with a half-step martial emperor. 10 purple demon armored warriors working together could easily kill a half-step monarch. Even if they encountered an emperor, a team of more than 50 people would be able to kill it. As for the 130 purple demon armored warriors, they were like a mudslide. Anyone who stood in their way would die, and even monarchs would flee at the mere sight of them. Upon hearing Princess Rukin's introduction, Su Yu was slightly surprised. "Oh? Is the purple demon armor that powerful?" The sovereign of Qi heaved a sigh of relief and smiled apologetically. "This old man's life and future are on the line here. How could I dare to hold back?" Su Yu's brows relaxed and he nodded. "I will trust you for now, but if anything goes wrong, you know the consequences. The subsequent golden flames forbidden would all be ruined. Don't worry, they have all received my instructions and will definitely do their best." The sovereign of Qi cupped his fists once again. "I will go back and wait for the good news, Your Highness. When the time comes, let's drink to our heart's content." Su Yu nodded slightly, and watched as the sovereign of Qi teleported away. Princess Rukin's eyes were sparkling, and her face was full of joy. She could not stop smiling. It was only when the sovereign of Qi had left that she suddenly threw herself into Su Yu's arms. She held his face and kissed him to her heart's content. Her small face was overflowing with sincere gratitude and excitement from the bottom of her heart. When she realized that something was amiss, she hurriedly retracted her body, and her snow-white face abruptly blushed. Outsiders might not think much of it, but she knew very well that they were not real siblings. Emperor Wuhan was also full of joy, and his half-smiling eyes darted back and forth between the two of them. She was filled with boundless gratitude towards Su Yu. Without him, there would be no hope of today. How arrogant was the sovereign of Qi! From the beginning to the end, he had not spoken a single word to her or Princess Rukin, and he had not even looked them in the eye. He had only done so because of Su Yu. Even though she was very curious about how Su Yu had convinced the sovereign of Qi, she feigned ignorance out of respect and gratitude. "Your Highness, there is something that I do not know if it is appropriate to ask." Staring at Su Yu, Emperor Wuhan's heart was filled with complicated emotions. Su Yu looked over and said calmly, "Please speak." After a slight hesitation, Emperor Wuhan said, "The sovereign of Qi only recognizes Your Highness alone. Why would Your Highness still help us, a pair of orphans?" The sovereign of Qi had asked this question before. Su Yu smiled slightly and said calmly, "There is no other reason. It was just a promise. You have done me a favor, and I will definitely repay it." Repaying favors was Su Yu's code of conduct, and there were no exceptions. The two women were stunned, and the way they looked at Su Yu changed completely. They had been more or less guarded against Su Yu before, but now that they were in trouble, they could clearly see Su Yu's character. They admired him and felt fortunate. Fortunate that they had met Su Yu, and fortunate that they had worked hard to fulfill their promise. The expression of the second prince, who had witnessed everything, changed from shock to shock, and finally to ashen. He had never imagined that Su Yu could find such powerful reinforcements. He had never imagined that a salted fish like Princess Rukin could make a comeback. What he regretted was that he was the one who had beaten Princess Rukin into a salted fish. If he had known that the sixth prince could recruit such powerful reinforcements, he would not have provoked Princess Rukin for the sake of a mere 20 people. Now she must hate him to the core, right? As he pondered, he slowly retreated, leaving the princess's manor dejectedly. He, second imperial brother, where are you going? Princess Ruchern asked with a smile. The second prince stopped in his tracks and forced a smile. There are guests from my sister's manor. I will not stay any longer. Farewell. You can leave and I cannot stop you. But as for them, did they break the contract? Betray? Fine, 10,000 divine stones for each of them. If they can't pay up, I'm sorry, but you will have to spend 100 years in the Empire's prison. Princess Rukin raised her eyebrows and said with a murderous aura. The second prince's expression kept changing, and he said in a low voice, Sister, aren't you making things difficult for us? If he kept them, where would his prestige be? Would the more than 80 people he had recruited still be loyal to him? It is only right and proper to repay a debt. You have received my blessing, but you want to leave? Do you really think I am a pushover? Princess Rukin said this with a lack of confidence. She involuntarily grabbed Su Yu's arm, feeling reassured. The second prince's expression turned cold and he shouted, Do not be afraid of her. She may not be able to seize the position of crown prince. Follow me. The greatest hope was still the first prince. Princess Rukin's fate was most likely death or banishment. Princess Rukin let out a cold laugh. Let's see who dares to leave. At once, a group of traitors could not move like wooden stakes. Only half of them clenched their teeth and followed the second prince, hoping to get lucky. Princess Rukin's gaze turned cold, but she could not stop them. Su Yu looked on coldly from the side, calmly saying, Everyone, listen up. Remember those traitors who followed the second prince. Tomorrow, at the relic of the Diyu, kill every person you see. You will get 5,000 divine stones for each person you kill. An ordinary peak overlord would not even get 1,000 divine stones in a year. 5,000 divine stones was a full 5 years' worth of harvest. And the method was simple, kill a person. They were already mentally prepared to kill people at the relic of the Diyu, but to receive such a huge reward for killing people, forgive their poor imagination, they had never imagined it. In an instant, hundreds of pairs of burning eyes stared fixedly at the dozen or so traitors behind the second prince. His gaze was like that of a starving tiger staring at white sheep, wishing that he could rush over and eat them alive. Creak. The dozen traitors behind the second prince could not move an inch. They turned around with stiff expressions, meeting the ferocious gazes of the crowd. Those with weak willpower were so frightened that their legs turned to jelly. The curly-bearded scholar looked as if he had lost a funeral, no longer having the carefree and unrestrained air of waving his fan. He gulped and bowed respectfully to Princess Rukin. I was momentarily blinded by greed. Now that I have realized my error, please take me in, Princess. The rest followed suit. It was the second prince's flowery words that bewitched me. It was not my own will. Please investigate, Princess. The second prince used despicable methods to lure and threaten me. I had no choice but to comply. A group of people pushed the blame to the second prince, making him so angry that his nose was crooked. Many of them had sought him out, such as the curly-bearded scholar. Princess Rukin could not make up her mind. She thought for a moment, then looked towards Su Yu, subtly taking him as the leader. Looking at them, Su Yu calmly said, "Some of you were tempted. If you pay your debts, I'll let you go, or you'll be imprisoned for 100 years. There are also some who betrayed me because they were threatened. I can forgive them, and they can return to serve me." He did not kill them all at once. Instead, he dealt with them separately, fairly and reasonably. The curly-bearded scholar was overjoyed. He was about to speak when Su Yu's words sent him into a bottomless pit of ice. "But there is also a group who betrayed me and brought new masters to provoke me. If you want to choose a good tree to nest in, or if you want to be a wise man, or if you do not want to be covered in dust, I will grant you your wishes. I will not take you in, nor will I make you pay compensation or send you to prison. We will meet at the relic of the dew." "That's right. I'm talking about the 8 people who betrayed me last night. Get ready. The time to prove your worth has come." He spoke calmly, but his words were filled with cruelty and bloodthirst. Tomorrow they would be hunted down by the purple demon armored warriors. They would have nowhere to run. The curly-bearded scholar's legs turned to jelly. He begged, "Your Highness, please have mercy. I was blinded by greed. I don't want to die." Princess Rukin's expression turned cold. "Did you hear that? Do as sixth brother says." Walala, a group of purple demon armored warriors threw them out like wolves and tigers. "If you give up on the relic of the dew, I will personally give the order to kill you. Oh, don't even think about leaving the palace before the relic of the dew," Su Yu added, cutting off their thoughts of escaping. Participating in the relic of the dew might allow them to escape death by a fluke. If they did not participate, they would not be able to leave the palace. Even if they did, so what? All lands under the heavens belonged to the emperor. It was too easy for a prince to kill anyone. The 8 of them were like abandoned stray dogs, remorseful and dejected as they followed the dejected second prince. Chapter 1821. Please enter the main text, ha ha. This is too satisfying. Princess Ru Chun exclaimed with pride and elation. Emperor Wuhan could not stop giggling, and he looked at Su Yu with a strange look in his eyes. The next morning, a melodious bell rang from deep within the palace. Princess Rukin's expression tightened as she looked into the depths of the palace. "They're finally here." In the courtyard, Su Yu and Emperor Wuhan sat with their eyes closed. The 130 purple demon armored warriors were ready to go. They did not sleep the entire night. To be precise, no one in the palace could sleep. Because from this day onwards, the fate of the empire would be decided for millions of years to come. The fight for the throne. Clang, clang. When the bell tolled, the 5 princes' mansions and the princesses' mansions all went into a huge commotion. Countless powerful young geniuses streamed out. They were like rivers flowing into the sea, gathering in the depths of the palace from different directions. That was the forbidden area of the palace. Usually, only one person in the entire empire could enter: the monarch Dongfang Xia. Apart from him, not even the crown prince, Dongfang Wudi, could enter without permission. Anyone who disobeyed would be killed. In history, there had been 3 princes who had trespassed and were mercilessly killed. One of them was even more powerful than the current first prince, and the entire empire supported him. However, he was arrogant and had barged into the forbidden area alone. He had been killed by the monarch, shocking the other princes. Since then, no other prince had dared to trespass. They would not even go near the forbidden area unless it was absolutely necessary. But today, the moment that would decide their fate had arrived. 6 princes and 1 princess stood in front of the forbidden area with their heads held high. Behind them were the strong youths who had chosen to follow them. Among them, the first prince and the 5th prince had joined forces. They were the most powerful, with more than 200 people. The 6th prince and the princess had joined forces with more than 130 people. They were the second most powerful. Behind them were the 2nd prince's 90 people. The 3rd prince's 70 people. The 4th prince's 60 people. The area in front of the forbidden area was packed with people. They sized each other up. Apart from the second prince, the other princes were shocked when they saw the sixth prince and Princess Rooken's troops. The third prince was shocked. Where did their reinforcements come from? Outside of the 10 feudal lands, who else could provide support with more than 130 people? Was it the sixth prince? No, he was just a newcomer. How could he have the time to gather so many people? Or is it my sister? The fourth prince was also surprised. The first prince and the fifth prince looked over, and their faces darkened. Purple demon armor. The eldest imperial prince's eyes shone with a sinister light. He recognized the origin of the armor. Apart from the Emperor of Qi, no one else could fully equip a group of peak overlords. The fifth prince clenched his fists furiously. What benefits did the sixth prince give that old man to make him go against us with all his might? The two of them stared at each other. They had originally thought that the second prince was the biggest threat. Who knew that the true threat was the sixth prince and Princess Ruchen, whom they had never taken seriously? While they were sizing up Su Yu's people, Su Yu was also sizing them up. He looked around and immediately noticed a pair of complicated eyes looking at him. When Su Yu looked over, he was slightly startled. Then, he smiled faintly and looked elsewhere. It's him. How could it be? Empress Ziwei, who was dressed in a purple robe, stared in disbelief at the familiar yet unfamiliar figure in the yellow robe. She was trembling, unable to suppress her shock. Ziwei, who did you see? Why are you so excited? A mocking voice came from beside her. It was a beautiful pink-robed woman with a peak overlord cultivation level. She had a voluptuous figure, and her snow-white chest was particularly eye-catching. She exuded an indescribable charm from head to toe. Ziwei regained some of her composure and pointed at Su Yu. Who is he? The charming woman looked over, her eyes flashing with ridicule. I was wondering why you've taken a liking to the sixth prince. Ziwei, although you are so beautiful that even I am jealous, you should forget about him. The beautiful women who want to marry him in the imperial city can line up from the imperial city to the feudal land. I can only feast my eyes on them. Sixth prince. Empress Ziwei was shocked. Aren't there only 5 princes in the empire? The charming woman chuckled. Oh, I almost forgot. You have been training in isolation all this time and do not know what is going on in the outside world. Recently, a prince who has been wandering outside has appeared. He travels outside all year round. Right, he has traveled in the constellation sea. I remember you are from the constellation sea, right? Do you know each other? No, I don't know him. Empress Ziwei's heart was in turmoil. It can't be wrong, it's him. It must be him. Su Yu. That's a pity. The sixth prince is a genius. Do you know what he comprehended with the power of the Dao Rain? You'll be shocked to death if I tell you. Empress Ziwei stared at Su Yu, her eyes darkening. How much of the rules did he comprehend? Back then, Su Yu was even inferior to her. After a few years, he had not only become the sixth prince of the Du Empire, his status had skyrocketed, and she had to look up to him. Even his abilities had changed drastically. She did not even qualify to participate in the Dao Rain, but Su Yu could participate as a prince, and he was the envy of everyone in the world. He must have condensed at least 50% of the rules, right? In contrast, she was still a long way from condensing the rules. How much? A complete rules and a law that has been comprehended 40%. He's definitely going to be the future emperor. Empress Ziwei gasped, her pupils constricting to the size of needles. Her chest felt like it had been smashed by a giant hammer, and she was extremely depressed. She could not believe that Su Yu had reached a level where she had to look up to him. However, this is nothing. The fifth prince and Princess Rooken have also comprehended the complete rules, so it's nothing in comparison. What's truly frightening is, do you know what kind of rules he has comprehended? Empress Ziwei was startled. Is it some kind of powerful rules? Powerful? Haha, do you know what the 8 great rules of the heavenly path are? Empress Ziwei replied, Of course I do. It's one of the 8 most powerful laws of heaven and earth. It's extremely profound and abstruse, and only a handful of people have managed to comprehend it throughout history. However, every single person who has managed to do so has become the ruler of a great civilization. She wrinkled her nose. Don't tell me that he has comprehended one of the 8 great rules? She did not believe it from the bottom of her heart. Of course not. Empress Ziwei snorted and looked at Su Yu with a complicated expression. She said calmly, Then it's not that great. He has comprehended 2 of the 8 great rules. Empress Ziwei's expression stiffened, and she stood rooted to the ground, forgetting to breathe. The charming woman's reverent voice continued to ring in her ears. He has comprehended the space rules completely, and he has comprehended 40% of the life rules. My goodness, it's hard to imagine that I can see a living demonic genius. Compared to him, what are we so-called geniuses? He is a dragon and we are worms. No. It can't be like this. Back when she joined Bei Wangchen, she had told herself time and time again that from now on, she would walk a different path from Su Yu and Shui Guanyin. There would be no more interaction between them. After all, one faced the sky and the other faced the earth. But now, Su Yu was standing in front of her with the right to look down on her. How shocking was that? She had overturned her beautiful vision for several years. No, there is another person, Bei Wangchen. He can't be more powerful than Bei Wangchen. Empress Ziwei clenched her fists tightly. Back then, she had stubbornly betrayed her hometown, the civilization of the Sea of Constellations, and severed her ties with Su Yu and Shui Guanyin. Wasn't it because she was obsessed with Bei Wangchen's unparalleled potential that she realized she was a frog at the bottom of a well? She might not be able to compare with Su Yu, but the person she followed was definitely not wrong. The charming woman's pupils shrank. Bei Wangchen was a taboo existence in the Du Empire. He was also the only existence that could compare with Dongfang Wudi. He was not an emperor, but he was above all other emperors. His talents were terrifyingly strong. He might not be as good as Bei Wangchen, but the gray-robed emperor thinks very highly of the 6th prince. He has only shown such an attitude towards the 6th prince, the charming woman said with uncertainty. Empress Ziwei snorted coldly. That's because of his identity as a prince. If Bei Wangchen was also a yellow, the gray-robed emperor would definitely look up to him. What she did not know was that the gray-robed emperor understood the significance of comprehending the 8 great laws better than she did. Even if Bei Wangchen was the heir to the throne, the gray-robed emperor would not think so highly of him, let alone the fact that Bei Wangchen was not a prince. Those who comprehended the 8 great laws and those who comprehended the ordinary laws were destined to be people of 2 different worlds. Sensing that Empress Ziwei's gaze was fixed on him, Su Yu smiled lightly. Those who abandon me can't keep yesterday, those who disturb my mind can only worry today. Since he had left, he would no longer worry. His gaze continued to look around, and suddenly, he found a familiar figure. Bei Wangchen's Ao Xiang. At this moment, he was staring at Su Yu with hatred, as if he wanted to skin Su Yu alive. Loser. Su Yu glanced at him casually, then looked at the other 8 people beside Ao Xiang. They were exactly the same as Ao Xiang, representing the other 8 sides of Bei Wangchen. Every Xiang has the fighting power of a half-step emperor. With the 9 Xiang working together, I'm afraid no one in the ruins of the Du Empire can defeat them. As if sensing his gaze, the 9 Xiang looked over at the same time. Their different gazes converged, giving Su Yu a sense of danger. The thread of fate suddenly shook. Oh! Su Yu narrowed his eyes. The last time the thread of fate shook like this was when he was fighting with Huan Yulangjun. Bei Wangchen was indeed a strong opponent that he needed to be wary of. Withdrawing his gaze, Su Yu looked elsewhere and met a pair of complicated crystal eyes. It was the north-gazing pearl. Su Yu smiled at her, which made the north-gazing pearl glare at him fiercely, as if to say, "How dare you smile?" Shrugging, Su Yu's gaze drifted to the rest of the people. At this moment, he found a slightly familiar person standing beside the north-gazing pearl. It was a young man who somewhat resembled Bei Wangchun. He smiled lightly at Su Yu to show his goodwill. Only then did Su Yu remember who he was. The north-gazing pavilion. That day in the swamp, when the other party was being hunted, it was Su Yu who saved his life. The other party even gave Su Yu a jade pendant and told him to look for him at the north-gazing manor if he was in trouble. Su Yu didn't expect him to come too. So many acquaintances. Su Yu touched his nose. Since they were all here, the Saint Lady of the Joyous Holy Ground should be here too, right? Sure enough, a gaze filled with hatred pierced through him. Su Yu smiled at her and shrugged his shoulders innocently, which made the other party grind her teeth and look at him as if she wanted to eat him alive. However, the next moment, Su Yu was attracted by the person beside her. It was an ordinary young man wearing a bamboo hat that covered his face. Su Yu's gaze involuntarily paused. Chapter 1822. Su Yu used his transparent eyes to look over. To his surprise, the young man was shrouded in an indescribable aura of destiny, and it blocked the light from his eyes. The bamboo-hatted man followed Su Yu's gaze and shuddered. He stared at Su Yu for a long time. A faintly discernible fighting spirit shot out from under the bamboo hat. Su Yu was sure that they had met before. The two of them looked at each other for a moment, then looked away. The first prince had many strong men under him, especially Bei Wangchun. Back then, he had gathered countless strong men from his fiefdom. Now that he thought about it, he was probably recruiting young geniuses for the first prince's fight for the nation's fortune. You really have a lot of enemies. Princess Ru Chun shrank her neck. She felt uncomfortable being stared at by so many people. Su Yu smiled. There are too many people to worry about, he said. Is it because he is thick-skinned and is not afraid of being beaten? Princess Ru Chun grunted. Su Yu laughed. Then, he looked at the men of the second prince, the third prince, and the fourth prince. He could not see through one of the men of each of the three princes. Do they all have a trump card? It seems like they are giving it their all in this fight. I have to be serious, Su Yu thought to himself. The 6 princes and 1 princess were all present. With a whoosh, the gray-robed emperor appeared in front of them silently, without the slightest ripple of energy. Just this move alone was enough to intimidate many of the people present. I will not say any unnecessary words. You only need to remember one thing. Do not attack the members of the royal family. Otherwise, even if you come out, you might not be able to leave alive. The gray-robed emperor did not hide his immense killing intent. The terrifying ripple of energy from the double-crowned emperor terrified everyone present. But the smart ones understood the hidden meaning. Even if they could not kill the members of the royal family, they could at least kill the ordinary participants, right? In all the previous fights for the nation's fortune, the number of people who died from man-made disasters had never been less than half. This time, the fight for the throne was even more intense, and this number would probably increase. The relic of the dew officially opens. The gray-robed emperor's voice shook the sky. He waved his big sleeves, and the seal that had been sealed for many years behind him opened with a creak. An ancient and broken giant door appeared in front of everyone. Behind the enormous door, a wave of divine energy that was close to liquid assaulted their faces. It was mixed with a special aura that was different from the Dew Empire, causing one's spirit to tremble. You have a month's time. After a month, you will be teleported back by the ruins. The gray-robed sovereign stepped aside. Go in. Just as he finished speaking, the 6 teams entered one after another. A boundless green grassland came into view. Close to 500 people gathered at the entrance, staring at the scene before them in shock. At the end of the grassland were huge mountains that pierced through the clouds. They were as steep as swords. The remnants of the ancient palace could be vaguely seen on the peak of the mountain. The outer perimeter is beautiful. Sharp Sword Mountain. Princess Ru Chen exhaled and could not help but feel nervous. Su Yu stared at the strange giant mountain. He did not know why, but he had a strange feeling about it. Flying ancient beasts reside on Sharp Sword Mountain. Not only are the one-horned eagles extremely fast, but they are also skilled in sonic attacks. Killing them is very difficult. Furthermore, after killing them, the luck of the nation they have is usually very low, so it is not worth hunting them, Princess Rukun said in a very practiced manner. Su Yu took a deep look at Sharp Sword Mountain, asking profoundly, "Will they take the initiative to attack us?" The one-horned eagles are naturally timid. If they were alone, they might be hunted down by them. But now that there are so many of us, they do not even dare to approach us, Princess Rukun said disapprovingly. Is that so? Su Yu began to ponder. Ha ha ha, sixth brother, if you only have this much courage, you should give up early. If you are afraid of a mere one-horned eagle, won't the ancient beasts behind you scare you into retreating? The second prince stood beside the second prince. With a cold sneer, he took the lead and leaped forward. More than 90 people followed behind him. After crossing Sharp Sword Mountain, they would be able to enter the outer perimeter. That was where the ancient beasts resided. As soon as the second prince moved, the rest of the sovereigns followed suit. Princess Rukun could not wait any longer. She leaped into the air, wanting to give chase as well. But Su Yu grabbed her by the shoulder and pulled her back. Let's wait for a while. He stared at Sharp Sword Mountain, frowning slightly. Princess Rukun was anxious. What is the one-horned eagle afraid of? The purple demon armored warriors behind her were also impatient. There were many spiritual treasures in the ruins of Yu the Great. After all, it had been 100 million years since the last time it had been opened. Even if they had plucked everything clean, they should have all grown in 100 million years. If they were a step slower, they would lose many good things. I am not afraid of the one-horned eagle, but I feel that something is amiss. Su Yu cast his gaze toward the Sharp Sword Mountain, calmly saying, "Did you not notice that there are no one-horned eagles circling above the Sharp Sword Mountains?" It was only after seeing his figure that the crowd realized something was amiss. Indeed, if the one-horned eagles had not sensed the presence of living beings in their nests, it would have been fine. But the second prince and his group had already rushed to the vicinity of Sharp Sword Mountain, and there was still no movement. This was a little strange. The agitated purple demon armored warriors gradually calmed down. As expected, the first prince, the fifth prince, the third prince, and the fourth prince also gradually realized that something was amiss, and they slowed down their speed. Only the second prince and his group, who were in front, did not notice anything amiss behind them. They thought that they had shaken off their pursuers because they were moving too fast. Charge! Charge into the outer perimeter and seize the initiative. If I can ascend to the throne, I will bestow 100,000 divine stones to those who contribute. The second prince roared heroically, leading the charge into the Sharp Sword Mountain. His followers behind him were also in high spirits, shouting as they charged forward in a frenzy. However, at this moment, something strange happened. The third Sharp Sword Mountain suddenly collapsed. No, it was not a collapse. Instead, the mountain suddenly twisted and dived down. Su Yu and his group, who were watching from afar, were the first to see it clearly. The Sharp Sword Mountain twisted its body like a snake. Its head hidden in the clouds suddenly turned and dived down to the ground. A gigantic mouth that had no nose, eyes, or ears, and was only 10,000 feet wide, suddenly sucked in a deep breath. Suddenly, a large number of people who had rushed over were sucked into the giant mouth like sand. Only a small number of people who were sucked in could rationally escape. With this one gulp, a third of the 90 people were lost. Retreat quickly! The second prince did not understand the situation and instinctively shouted. Even so, the giant monster sucked in another 20 people and sucked them away. Munch munch! Apart from the sounds of people fleeing in fear, there was only the bone-chilling crunching sounds of the monster chewing on dozens of corpses. "Retreat quickly!" The expressions of the first prince and his group changed drastically, and they all ordered their people to retreat to the entrance. Seeing the second prince return with the remaining 40 people, they could not bring themselves to laugh. All of them fell into a state of great fear. Emperor-level ancient beast, the corpse-eating giant venomous centipede. Princess Rukin was dumbfounded. The other princes also stood there blankly, their faces filled with shock and astonishment. Having survived the calamity, the second prince roared angrily, "Who can tell me what is going on? Why would the ancient beast in the depths of the relic run to a place that is not even considered the periphery?" At this moment, his heart was bleeding. He had not obtained a shred of the nation's destiny, but he had lost more than half of his people. Originally, he had the advantage of being ranked third, but now he was ranked last. The expressions of the princes all turned serious. The relic of Yu the Great must have undergone some unknown changes in the past 100 million years. They could no longer speculate based on past experience. Rumble. At this moment, the huge body of the corpse-eating giant venomous centipede began to burrow into the ground. Trying to run? The first prince's eyes flashed coldly. He grabbed the golden sword at his waist and slashed across the air. Unbounded imperial hegemony. A sword chi the size of a mountain of sharp swords slashed out with a rumble. Puff! The huge body of the corpse-eating giant venomous centipede was almost slashed into two. What a domineering strike! Compared to the royal dragon sovereign sword, this strike was much more powerful. The other princes also reacted. This was an emperor-level ancient beast. Whoever killed it would obtain the nation's destiny. Kill! Even the second prince reacted, and led his people to attack the giant venomous centipede. In an instant, colorful divine techniques bombarded the corpse-eating giant venomous centipede like raindrop. Unless it was a double-crown emperor, anyone who saw such an attack would have to run away. Snatch it from me? The first prince leaped out. The golden sword once again exploded with a shocking sword radiance. Before the other divine techniques bombarded him, the first prince slashed the giant venomous centipede into two from head to tail. When the rest of the divine techniques attacked, the giant venomous centipede was already dead. Wasn't it a fantasy for a peak overlord to fight with an emperor? Many of the first prince's followers cheered, shaking the ruins. On the other hand, the followers of the other princes were disheartened. However, at that moment, a 10-meter-long earthworm suddenly jumped out of the corpse of the giant venomous centipede. It was its soul. In its mouth was a 5-meter-long five-colored ball. It was the nation's destiny. The first prince sneered, "Where do you think you're going?" The golden sword once again slashed down at lightning speed. This strike was enough to destroy the soul. Many powerhouses who were rushing over sighed. There was nothing they could do. They could not compete with the emperor at all. Before their divine techniques arrived, their souls would be destroyed by the first prince. However, at that moment, a deafening shriek crushed most of the divine techniques in its path and chased after the little earthworm. Ah! What broke my divine technique? My internal organs are being shaken by this thing. Who did it? Why is that powerful aura even stronger than the first prince's unbounded imperial dominance? In the midst of their shock, they only saw a black stream of light streaking across the sky like a meteorite, heading straight for the earthworm's soul. The first prince was about to pull out his sword when he suddenly felt the powerful aura behind him. He was shocked. When he came back to his senses, he roared, "Who dares to snatch my things?" The golden sword in his hand slashed down faster. However, the stream of light behind him was too fast. When he reacted, the earthworm's soul was pierced and dissipated on the spot. With a whoosh, the national fate in his mouth flew in the opposite direction. "Where are you going?" The first prince sucked in the air, trying to grab the nation's destiny. However, the nation's destiny was not affected at all. It flew straight to the entrance, into the hands of a young man in a yellow dragon robe. Chapter 1823. The first prince's cold gaze was like lightning, staring at the owner of the palm that held the destiny of the nation. His expression was icy cold. Sixth prince. Su Yu stabbed a 2 tall giant bow into the ground, his hand pulling the bowstring tightly. The faintly discernible law of strength surrounded him. Whoosh, after the jet black light pierced through the soul, it flew back and landed in his other hand. His expression was normal, but he was in a good mood. As expected, anything that caught Xiao Dai's eye was not ordinary. With just a try, the power unleashed by the heavenly bow was unparalleled. Thinking back to the Emperor-level first prince, the earthworm's soul had been right in front of him, but it had been killed by the heavenly bow. Not only was its power shocking, its speed was unparalleled. He was very satisfied with the result. With a light laugh, Su Yu put the soul into his pocket. The second prince's eyes turned red with jealousy. He had sacrificed more than half of his men to help Su Yu. The third and fourth princes were also extremely jealous. He had just started by snatching an emperor-level nation's destiny, leaving them far behind. If they were so, the first prince's hatred could be imagined. He had killed the giant venomous centipede with one strike, but Su Yu had intercepted him. Sixth prince. I will remember this. The first prince was furious. Let's go. Rumble. Over 200 men followed the first prince through the Sharp Sword Mountain, reaching the outer perimeter. The second prince, third prince, and fourth prince were not to be outdone, each choosing a direction to run in. Princess Rukan laughed loudly. To snatch an emperor-level nation's destiny at the start, our chances of victory have increased. In contrast, Su Yu's smile faded, his expression turning serious. Don't be careless. In our current situation, our chances of victory are less than 30%. His calm demeanor just now was for the enemy to see. Princess Rukan calmed down from her elation. Indeed, they had celebrated too early. Even though the giant venomous centipede is the weakest among the emperor-level ancient beasts, it is still an emperor-level being. Back when father was still a prince, he entered this place to fight for the nation's destiny and also killed a giant venomous centipede. However, he took half a day to kill it. Eldest brother only used one strike. Princess Rukan said worriedly. In comparison, the first prince's terror was evident. He alone was comparable to 100 men. In addition, among his men, there was Bei Wangchen, the #1 Heaven's Pride expert of the Empire, the saintess of the joyous holy ground, and many half-step martial monarchs. The speed at which they collected the destiny of the nation would reach an unbelievable level. The future was extremely bleak. According to the usual method, our chances of winning are slim. We can only split up. Su Yu thought about it carefully. Sister, you can lead the purple demon armored warriors. With their torrential force, even if they encounter an emperor-level ancient beast, they will be able to kill it. They can also ensure your safety. You are not coming with us? Princess Ru Chun panicked, feeling insecure. Su Yu stroked her head, his gaze gentle. You are the future queen. Sooner or later, you will have to take charge. Princess Rukan did not reject him. She felt a lump in her throat. The royal clan was heartless. Instead, this outsider was like an older brother, giving her warmth and affection. You will lead them to seize the fate of the nation. What about you? I'll prepare a kingdom for you, Su Yu said boldly. Princess Ru Chen felt a warmth in her heart, and her eyes became resolute. Imperial brother, take care. She streaked across the sky, and a purplish-black undercurrent surged along with her, surging toward the horizon like a torrent. Su Yu stood on the spot, muttering to himself for a moment. The 9-jade spiritual pearl on his arm flickered, and the figure of a petite young lady appeared. Are you hungry? What do you think? Xiao Dai's face was full of resentment. 3 days ago, Su Yu had starved her again. It was even more cruel than the black market, which had only lasted for a day. Haha, then you should know that I've let you out to prepare a feast for you. Xiao Dai rolled her eyes and looked around. Her eyes shone brightly. What a dense divine energy! A place like this is the best place to produce treasures. It's not just treasures. There are many delicious foods that you can't even imagine, Su Yu said with a mysterious smile. Especially the ancient beasts here. They are nourished by the divine energy all year round. Their meat is fresh, soft, and juicy. It's indescribably delicious. Humph, I don't believe what you're saying. Oh, then wipe off your saliva first. You are insulting my great personality. I am a habitual epileptic. Finally, Su Yu threw her a pouch that contained the fate of the nation. After eating the ancient beasts, store the fate of the nation in this pouch. Xiao Dai had a look of disdain. I knew you wouldn't feel at ease. You can choose not to eat it. You win. Grabbing the pouch, Xiao Dai gritted her teeth and looked around, her mouth full of saliva. Her smiling face was full of excitement and wild joy. She couldn't help but laugh heartily. Ha ha ha, I Xiao Dai am back again. The deafening roar shocked all the ancient beasts in the surroundings, causing them to flee in terror. It was as if they had sensed the existence of some natural enemy. Su Yu looked at Xiao Dai worriedly and muttered to himself, I hope I didn't do anything wrong. With that said, he chose a direction and strode forward. 5 days later, creek. In a mountain valley, Su Yu killed a 1,000-foot-long scorpion with a single slash of his sword. With a flick of the tip of the sword, a fist-sized lump of the nation's fate was plucked out. 83rd kill. Su Yu stored the fate of the nation in his pouch helplessly. The scorpion was an ancient beast half a step away from the emperor level, but the nation's fate obtained after killing it was less than 1/100th of the giant corpse-eating centipede. He had killed 83 beasts in 5 days, and even the weakest among them was at the overlord level. However, the total amount of the nation's fate obtained was less than half of the giant corpse-eating centipede's fate. At this rate, the total amount won't exceed 4 emperor-level nations' fates in a month. Su Yu stopped and analyzed. The first prince and the others' gains are probably far more than this. Their numbers and overall strength were far inferior to their opponent. If this went on, they would definitely lose. I can't waste any more time on ordinary ancient beasts. The decisive ones are the emperor-level ancient beasts. Su Yu was in the middle of the ruins. The traditional emperor-level ancient beasts were all inside the ruins. The territories of a few famous emperor-level ancient beasts had already been marked out. It was time to take a look. Su Yu's eyes flashed as he ventured deeper into the ruins. For some unknown reason, the deeper he ventured, the more familiar he felt. When he first saw the Sharp Sword Mountain, he had a similar feeling. He had thought it was an illusion caused by the Sharp Sword Mountain. However, as time passed, the sense of familiarity did not disappear. Instead, it grew stronger. Where does this sense of familiarity come from? This question had been bothering him for a long time. He sped all the way. Half a day later, he suddenly felt a powerful fluctuation of the divine energy of heaven and earth. With his transparent eyes, he could see the thick layers of clouds that were invisible to ordinary eyes surging in the sky like waves. Even with Su Yu's cultivation of a peak overlord, he felt extremely small in the face of this vast divine energy. Such a powerful fluctuation? Su Yu was slightly surprised. The fluctuation caused by the double-crowned emperor's attack should be similar, right? Similar phenomena of heaven and earth were either the attacks of strong men or the birth of natural spiritual treasures. Is it an ancient beast or a spiritual treasure? Su Yu's heart thumped as he flew over. Standing on a mountain peak, he looked into the distance. A dark red beam of light shot up into the sky. A faintly discernible dragon-shaped mass of energy roared and swam around the beam of light. The moment his eyes met the beam of light, the blood in his body suddenly boiled and flowed uncontrollably in reverse. What's going on? Su Yu's expression changed as he hurriedly suppressed the reversal of his blood. It's the weak dragon blood in my body. His expression changed in surprise. What the dragon blood could sense was also related to the dragon clan. How could there be something related to the dragon race in the ruins of Yu the Great? Su Yu was secretly surprised. The dark red beam of light gradually shrank, and the feeling of the dragon blood quickly faded. His eyes flashed, and a pair of yin-yang wings appeared on his back. Before the beam of light completely disappeared, he teleported nearby. The scene at the scene surprised him slightly. He saw an ancient giant peak that had been cut horizontally from the center, revealing the details of the mountain's interior. A dark red lake came into view. This is... Su Yu's face overflowed with deep ecstasy. The blood of a real dragon. There was no mistake, it was the diluted blood of a real dragon. Judging from the thickness of the dragon blood, it was probably no less than the double-crowned emperor's divine blood. Considering how old it had been, this was probably the divine blood left behind by a three-crowned emperor's real dragon. What he lacked the most at the moment was the blood of a real dragon. If he could obtain it, the power of the royal dragon sword would be further released, and the power would be earth-shattering. However, although he was excited, he restrained himself. The appearance of dragon blood meant the appearance of a powerful ancient beast. Moreover, how this mountain had been cut horizontally was still a mystery. Retracting his aura, Su Yu landed in a hidden place and watched closely. As expected, a moment later, a white-headed giant eagle flew over from the ninth heaven. Its terrifying aura had reached the level of a one-crowned emperor. It circled nearby, its eyes staring at the giant dragon blood lake, revealing a look of greed. But suddenly, it stared sharply at the lake, revealing deep vigilance. After circling for half a cup of tea's time, the white-headed eagle lost its patience and dove down with a sharp screech. Its sharp claws, wrapped in a desolate force, suddenly plunged into the blood-colored lake. Roar! An angry roar suddenly came from the pool of blood. A huge green python suddenly swept its tail the instant the white-headed eagle grabbed at it. The snake's tail was thin and flat like a sword. This mountain had been cut by the giant snake's tail. Clang! The giant claws and the snake's tail separated upon contact. Both were unharmed. The giant white-headed eagle spun around, turning back to bite the snake with its giant mouth. The green snake was not to be outdone. It raised its giant head and spat out deadly venom. The giant white-headed eagle screeched. A huge whirlwind blew out, blowing away all the venom. Seeing that the situation was not good, the green snake dove into the blood-colored lake. The giant white-headed eagle let out a human-like sneer. It sped up and grabbed the green snake hiding in the blood-colored lake with its beak. This bite almost tore the green snake in half. The green snake on the bed swayed its giant body and fled in a panic. The giant white-headed eagle descended like a victor, excitedly lowering its head to drink at the edge of the lake. Su Yu secretly took out the tiani bow. This giant white-headed eagle was exceptionally powerful, and its flying speed was extremely fast. He had to either kill it with one arrow or not provoke it. But at this moment, the giant white-headed eagle seemed to have sensed something. Its eyes were filled with fear. It flapped its wings in a panic, trying to escape. It had just flown up 1,000 feet when a solid chain shot down from the sky. Screech! The giant white-headed eagle fluttered its wings in fear to block the chain. At the same time, it let out a sharp screech, setting off a strong storm. But the chain ignored it. Not only did it pierce through the storm, but it also pierced through the giant white-headed eagle's indestructible giant mouth, piercing through its entire body from head to tail. Bang! With a deafening noise, the emperor-level giant white-headed eagle was completely destroyed. No one picked up the nation's fate and it rolled to the ground. Chapter 1824. How could there be a double-crowned king? Was it the king of the ancient beasts in the inner area? The next moment, a red-eyed, evil-looking youth dressed in red appeared in front of the lake of dragon blood. How dare a mere ant try to steal my stuff? The evil-looking youth waved his sleeves, and the entire lake of dragon blood was sucked into a blood gourd. Hee, this is the third gourd of dragon blood. The evil-looking youth hung the gourd on his waist, and it stood side by side with the other two identical gourds. After saying that, he left without even looking at the destiny on the ground. Su Yu was secretly astonished by what he saw. The evil-looking youth was one of the people Su Yu could not see through. He was a subordinate of the fourth prince. Su Yu had thought that he was just a little special, but he did not expect him to be a double-crowned king. The strange thing was that he had no interest in collecting the destiny of the nation, and even ignored the emperor-level destiny. It seems that he snuck in under the guise of assisting the fourth prince. He has other motives. After waiting for a moment to make sure that there were no more ancient beasts lurking nearby, he took out a small bag and put away the destiny. Looking at the empty lake of dragon blood, Su Yu felt it was a pity. Then, without stopping, he chased after the severely injured green snake, which was also an emperor-level ancient beast. The big green snake was good at burrowing into the ground, and ordinary people would lose track of it after a while. But with his transparent eye, the cave it left behind could not be clearer. Although the snake was injured, it was still agile. After chasing for half a day, Su Yu finally caught up with it. He drew the Tiani bow and shot an arrow through the snake, which was hiding deep underground. After receiving another emperor-level destiny, the small bag finally bulged a little. It's far from enough. Su Yu looked around and realized that he had unknowingly entered the inner area while chasing the big green snake. According to the map, this was the territory of another emperor-level ancient beast, the moon-howling heavenly wolf. Su Yu stealthily sneaked into its nest, but was surprised to find that it was empty. Did it leave the nest? Su Yu was puzzled. In the next 10 days, he went to the nests of the emperor-level ancient beasts, but he found nothing. Even the Rat King, who rarely left the nest, was nowhere to be seen. He searched through more than a dozen nests of various sizes, but he couldn't find a single trace of an emperor-level ancient beast. Not finding any emperor-grade ancient beasts in 1 or 2 locations was not surprising, but in more than a dozen locations, emperor-grade ancient beasts seemed to have vanished from the face of the earth. The 5-colored lizard's nest is up ahead. If there's nothing else, suddenly, a series of shouts and battle cries entered his ears. When he looked through the heavenly eye, he could not help but reveal a strange expression. Within a certain damp cave, Empress Ziwei, a seductive woman, and several of the first prince's subordinates were being attacked by the second prince's subordinates. How dare you? You even dare to kill the first prince's people? The charming woman shouted. They had received orders to investigate the situation of the 5-colored lizard's lair, but their search was fruitless. When they returned, they had not expected to run into the second prince's troops. Under the command of a black-robed man wearing a bamboo hat, they immediately surrounded them. The charming woman and her group were outnumbered and were forced to retreat step by step. More than half of them were injured or killed. Amidst the shouts, a few more people were killed. The charming woman was struck by the black-robed man's peculiar divine technique. Her entire body immediately turned pitch black. Then, she became motionless like a rock, and could only watch helplessly as the enemy's sword slashed toward her. More than half of their troops died to this strange divine art that was impossible to guard against. The charming woman closed her eyes in despair and waited for death to descend upon her. At this moment, someone grabbed her from behind, and she was dragged back to avoid that attack. Retreat to the nest and wait for reinforcements. The charming woman's heart relaxed, and she grinned. Sister Ziwei is still the most reliable. You can be relied on at crucial times. But how could the second prince's troops allow them to escape into the nest? The black-robed man's body surged with black energy, which transformed into sinister black snakes that swarmed toward them. In the blink of an eye, 5 people were struck and turned into pitch-black rock. They could not move in the slightest and were hacked to death. In the blink of an eye, only Empress Ziwei and the charming woman were left. At this critical moment, Empress Ziwei circulated the remaining divine energy in her body and shouted coldly, "Meteorite ice tribulation!" A huge ball of ice appeared in front of them and barely blocked the cave. The pitch-black snakes were frozen by the extreme frost as soon as they approached. Hee, do you think my dark demonic energy is so easily blocked? A cold sneer sounded, and all the frozen snakes self-detonated. The resulting shockwave completely shattered the ball of ice. Empress Ziwei's divine energy was completely depleted, and she could no longer resist. Her eyes were filled with despair. Unexpectedly, the other party did not kill her immediately. Instead, he said coldly, "Young Mistress Ziwei, hand over the 1,000-year dragon beard grass." The despairing Empress Ziwei suddenly opened her eyes and said coldly, "You're here for this item?" "No, who leaked it?" 5 days ago, they had discovered a 1,000-year dragon beard grass while exploring the nest of an emperor-level ancient beast. Dragon beard grass would usually be eaten by ancient beasts after growing for 800 years, and 1,000-year dragon beard grass was extremely rare. If this item was handed over to Bei Wangchun, it would definitely attract emperor-level ancient beasts. However, only a few people knew of this item's existence at that time, and they had agreed not to disclose it to the public. How did the second prince's people know of it, and even their specific coordinates were known by the other party, resulting in an ambush? Her eyes flashed, and she suddenly grabbed the spatial artifact on her finger. Her face was pale and she said weakly, "The 1,000-year dragon beard grass is inside. If you want it, let us go." The black-robed bamboo hat man said solemnly, "Stop." Empress Ziwei grabbed onto the last straw of hope. She supported the charming woman and slowly stood up. "Give me the antidote and let us go. Otherwise, don't even think about obtaining the 1,000-year dragon beard grass." Since they had come for this item, they would not sit idly by and watch the dragon beard grass be destroyed. As expected, the black-robed man hesitated and waved his hand to stop his subordinates from advancing rashly. He said eerily, "Accept your fate. You can't escape now. Your only choice is to die with dignity. Compared to the 1,000-year dragon beard grass, we are more unwilling to let the first prince know that we are killing his people." Empress Ziwei's heart sank. The life-saving straw that she had just grabbed onto had sunk to the bottom. If that was the case, only death would await her. Slowly closing her eyes, Empress Ziwei sneered and stared at them. "Very well, if Bei Wangchun can't get it, you ants won't get it either." The black-robed man sneered. "Ants? Aren't you overestimating Bei Wangchun?" Empress Ziwei's eyes were filled with reverence. She shook her head and said with longing, "You won't understand. In front of him, all living beings are ants. In this world, only Bei Wangchun can be called a genius. Everyone else, even the first prince, is overshadowed by him." Then you can accompany Bei Wangchun to death." Empress Ziwei smiled sadly. Her eyes were filled with determination. "The dragon beard grass is only prepared for Bei Wangchun. You are not qualified to touch it." In an instant, she exerted force in her fingers and wanted to crush the interspatial storage device. However, at this moment, a pitch-black palm grabbed her right palm without any warning and forcefully stopped her from crushing the interspatial storage device. A voice that he couldn't be more familiar with drifted into his ears. My good sister, you may want to die for Bei Wangchun, but I don't want to." Empress Ziwei's body trembled violently. She turned around in shock. It was the charming woman she saved. She was Empress Ziwei's only friend after she followed Bei Wangchun. The two went through life and death situations together. They trained together, cultivated in seclusion together, and experienced many years together. She couldn't believe that the other party had betrayed her. "It's you." In an instant, all her doubts were solved. There was indeed a traitor among them, but it was none other than her companions. "You betrayed me!" Empress Ziwei was enraged. Her whole body emitted waves of coldness. The charming woman laughed delicately and mercilessly broke the finger that was wearing the storage ring. She easily removed the storage device and threw it to the black-robed man. She grabbed Empress Ziwei's throat with her other hand and sneered disdainfully. He, what right do you have to be angry about someone else's betrayal? Do you remember when I asked you if you knew the sixth prince? Empress Ziwei's face stiffened. Your answer was that you didn't know him. Haha, do you really think I don't know what the sixth prince's real name was when he was training in the Sea of Constellations? It was Su Yu. He was the champion of the North Far Fief's Hidden Dragon contest. As for the relationship between the two of you, I have already investigated it thoroughly. Both of you came from the Sea of Constellations and carried out a mission together. But you chose to betray them after seeing Bei Wangchen's invincible talent. You even participated in the hunt for your former companions. Do you have the right to be angry about someone else's betrayal? Empress Ziwei felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. It was as if her worst side had been mercilessly dug out. You must be regretting it now, right? Your former country bumpkin companion has suddenly become the sixth prince of the Empire of Constellations. His status is respected, and he can summon the wind and rain. He is much stronger than you, the traitor from back then. Stop it. Empress Ziwei closed her eyes in pain, as if the charming woman had reopened her scar. I saw with my own eyes that the sixth prince did not linger on you for more than a breath's time. In his heart you are already a stranger. I told you to stop it. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Empress Ziwei roared. She would rather die than be reminded of the pain she had hidden deep in her heart. Angry from embarrassment? Someone like you who pursues perfection is the last thing you want to face in your life. Unfortunately, whether you admit it or not, you have been blind twice. You misjudged him the first time, and you misjudged me the second time. With a cold smile, the charming woman exerted strength in her fingers. Goodbye, my sister, An intense pain came from her neck, and she felt as if her neck was about to snap. However, right at that moment, an earth-shattering rumble reverberated through the cave. A muffled sound came from behind her, and the hand that was gripping her neck slowly loosened. Chapter 1825. She was not dead yet. She struggled to pull out the black arrow. Unfortunately, the arrow was extremely heavy. Even with her peak overlord cultivation, she could not move it at all. The black-robed man outside the cave had a drastic change of expression. Who is it? Sneaking around and hurting people, come out if you have the guts. When they ambushed people, did they ever do it openly? I'm standing right in front of you, but you can't see me, yet you blame me for secretly hurting people. The clear mockery echoed in the darkness. The black-robed man sneered. He was provoking the other party and exposing the other party's position. He was so easily fooled. There! He grabbed with both hands, and two black snakes as thick as arms shot into the sky. Several shadows flashed, but the black snakes had already shot toward the source of the voice. Heaven's slashing sword! The response was an indifferent sneer. A 30,000-meter-long sword chi surged into the sky and slashed down violently with unstoppable force. The two black snakes did not even have time to react before they were destroyed and shattered. The remaining sword energy slashed down with great force. In an instant, more than 10 people were turned into dust by the sword. One by one, the bags that sealed the nation's fortune exploded, and hundreds of lumps of different sizes flew out. Collect! With a soft shout, a slightly bulging bag appeared, swallowing the scattered nation's fortune in one breath. The black-robed man was furious. Thief, don't even think about it. He put his hands together, and countless black shadows shot out from his body, forming a giant black ball that enveloped the bag and its surroundings. Shrink, he shouted coldly. With a cold shout, the giant black ball suddenly contracted, petrifying the hidden creatures trapped within. As expected, a figure appeared. Humph, you killed my people and stole my things. The black-robed man displayed the powerful aura of a half-step emperor. Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, the black fog around the petrified figure suddenly dissipated, revealing a handsome young man who was unharmed. Just so. Su Yu's eyes turned cold, and the Azura sword slashed down again. Boom! This time, the full force of the sword was several times more powerful than before. Apart from the black-robed man, who barely managed to wrap himself in the black fog, the others all died on the spot. Having survived, he didn't feel good. His chest was cut by the remnant sword chi, leaving 2 deep wounds. The majestic sword chi was still wreaking havoc in his body, crazily destroying his vitality. An ordinary half-step martial monarch would have been killed by that attack. This black-robed man had his redeeming qualities. "It's you, 6th Prince." The black-robed man's pupils shrank. The conflict between the 2nd Prince and the 6th Prince was no secret. The 2nd Prince had even warned them to be careful of the 6th Prince and Princess Rukun's people. How could they not recognize him? Knowing how powerful the 6th Prince was, the black-robed man shook his sleeves without hesitation and turned into a black cloud that shot through the air. In the blink of an eye, he had fled to the horizon. At this moment, he dared to slow down a little and shouted coldly, "6th Prince, you have no idea who you are going against. I might not be a match for you, but someone else will." Su Yu stared at him calmly. "If you run away now, I won't bother to chase after you. If you insist on staying behind to say a few harsh words, then you don't have to leave." He didn't seem to make any movements, but he snapped his fingers with his right hand. All of a sudden, the black cloud, which was so far away, was torn apart from the inside out. The black-robed man let out a pathetic cry before turning into black fragments that fell to the ground. Midway, a beam of red light accurately swept back his bag of national fortune and storage artifact. Opening his palm, the 2 items appeared in Su Yu's hands. Opening his national fortune, he saw that there were more than 70 national fortunes, all of them overlord level. Not bad. He casually stuck the bag into his waist. Next was the storage ring that he had taken from Empress Ziwei. Holding the item, Su Yu turned to look at Empress Ziwei, who was covered in mud and had disheveled hair. She also saw him, her expression extremely complicated. Sixth Prince, why do you still want to help her?" The charming woman struggled. "I am helping you kill the traitor and avenge you. She was so self-righteous back then. Does 6th Prince not hate her?" Su Yu did not say a word. With a wave of his hand, the black arrow returned to him. "Thank you, 6th Prince, for sparing my life." The charming woman was overjoyed, but she obediently knelt by the side, not daring to make any unnecessary movements, listening to his orders. Her life or death depended on Su Yu's decision. Empress Ziwei had a complicated look in her eyes. She cupped her hands in a hoarse voice. "Thank you, 6th Prince, for helping me. Ziwei is forever grateful." She had never expected that they would meet again under such circumstances. She did not expect Su Yu to save her. Did he still care about their friendship in the Sea of Constellations? "You don't have to thank me." Su Yu looked at her as if he was looking at a stranger. "I saved you once for the sake of the Undying Boy. Back then, thanks to the Undying Boy, who had transformed into the Emperor of the Snowy Region, Su Yu, the Pearl Corpse King, and the others could escape the imprisonment of the Sinful Lady Palace. Now, saving her disciple's life was considered repayment for that favor. The Undying Boy? The famous Corpse King of the Sea of Constellations? Empress Ziwei did not understand what relationship she had with the Corpse King. "Whether you live or die, it makes no difference to me." Su Yu turned around indifferently. Empress Ziwei's eyes darkened. She had thought too much. Su Yu no longer had any feelings for her. Looking at Su Yu taking away her storage ring, Empress Ziwei opened her mouth. "You can take everything else, but please leave behind the 1,000-year-old dragon beard grass." Su Yu stopped in his tracks and asked calmly, "Why?" Empress Ziwei's eyes were stubborn. Because I left it for Bei Wangchen, not for you. She was unprecedentedly determined. The more embarrassed she was in front of the companions she used to look down on, the more determined she was to stay loyal to Bei Wangchen. She might not be as good as Su Yu, but Bei Wangchen, whom she was loyal to, was definitely better than him. This was the only thing she had that allowed her to hold her head high in front of Su Yu. Su Yu turned around and looked at her, his eyes full of pity and contempt. The Ice Rose, who marched forward proudly, willingly degraded herself and took pride in being someone else's mental slave. How pathetic and detestable! His sharp words pierced Empress Ziwei's heart with pain. In the past, she looked down on the world with disdain. She had a martial heart that would never yield to anyone. But now? She took pride in being loyal to others, just like a slave. I'm not wrong. Empress Ziwei was even more unwilling to accept Su Yu's words. Her eyes were full of admiration as she shook her head and looked at Su Yu coldly. You don't understand the true meaning of a genius. You are nothing in front of Bei Wangchen. The pity in Su Yu's eyes deepened. A frog at the bottom of a well. No one understood the so-called geniuses better than he did. The top people in a region could be called geniuses. But how big was the world? What were the geniuses of the Xinhui Island in the past compared to the current world? They were not even ants at the bottom. Similarly, what were the geniuses of the 3-star civilizations compared to the 9-star civilizations that ruled the Great Beginning Realm? Although Su Yu had never seen the geniuses of the 9-star civilizations, he could imagine that Bei Wangchen must be very mediocre there. Only a pathetic and ignorant frog at the bottom of a well would look up at the top people in a narrow region, thinking that he had seen the most powerful heaven rulers in the world. You are the frog at the bottom of a well. I didn't think much of Bei Wangchen before I saw his demonic talent. But now that I have seen him, I know how powerful and extraordinary he is. She refused to come to her senses and looked down on Su Yu, mocking him for not understanding the true meaning of a genius. Su Yu looked at her nonchalantly and suddenly smiled. Fine, I'll show you what a real heaven ruler is like. Su Yu took a deep breath and pulled Empress Ziwei to his side. What are you doing? Empress Ziwei's eyes were full of pride, like an unyielding peacock. I'll show you the sky beyond the well. Su Yu smiled lightly. When he finished speaking, his eyes flickered with soul light and fixed on the charming woman. She felt a pain in her head and fainted immediately. Su Yu quickly flipped through the memories of her soul. Oh? A hidden relic has appeared in the inner periphery, and all the Emperor ancient beasts are guarding the relic? Su Yu's eyes flickered. He had casually searched for the second prince's whereabouts, but he did not expect to receive an unexpected piece of news. A few days ago, when the second prince's men were exploring the lair of an Emperor ancient beast, they discovered a submerged relic in a half-dried lake. Many Emperor ancient beasts that had gone missing were resting nearby. It's been a few days. I'm afraid the news won't stay hidden for long. Su Yu immediately activated the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole, grabbed Empress Ziwei, and flew toward the relic. If he could seize the opportunity and kill all the Emperor ancient beasts, the fight for the fate of the nation would be as smooth as Mount Tai. An hour later, after 8 consecutive long-distance teleportations, he finally arrived nearby. What he saw was a stretch of mountains and rivers filled with blood-red light. A bloody light shot out from the ends of the world and dyed the sky and the earth blood-red. Wisps of ominous aura slowly enveloped the surroundings. There was even a tidal wave of primordial energy surging at the source of the blood-red light. It was a group of Emperor ancient beasts, and they were engaged in a fierce battle with some living beings. Su Yu rushed over with a thought. However, he discovered that there were 3 powerful Emperor-grade ancient beasts, and each of them was fighting a human. Su Yu was no stranger to those 3 people. First Prince, Bei Wangchen's 9 xiangs, the man in the bamboo hat. What surprised Su Yu the most was that the man in the bamboo hat, who looked somewhat familiar, had the combat power to fight Emperor ancient beasts alone. However, the three of them were quickly repelled. Perhaps they were affected by the blood-red light, but not only did the three Emperor Ancient Beasts' combat power soar, even their defensive power was enhanced by a large margin. The first prince's powerful golden sword only left a white mark on the body of a giant corpse-eating centipede. In contrast, the giant corpse-eating centipede was killed in 2 strikes. "Who's there?" The three of them retreated and saw Suyu. A murderous look flashed across the first prince's face. "It's you." Bei Wangchen, Jiuxiang, and the man in the bamboo hat looked over, their expressions calm. Suyu did not look at them. Instead, he looked at the magnificent group of Emperor Ancient Beasts. He saw that they had protected the relic that was exposed on the surface of the water with 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. An extremely evil aura was vaguely awakening in the relic. What surprised Suyu even more was that when he arrived at the relic of the Diyu, he felt a sense of familiarity. Chapter 1826. Please enter the main text. That familiar evil energy originated from the ruins. What was it? Suyu could not recall what was familiar about it. His eyes flashed and he focused on the beast. 13 Emperor-level Ancient Beasts. Suyu's eyes were filled with excitement, but then he frowned. Where is the double-crown Emperor-level beast? It was the greatest threat, but also the greatest opportunity. The empire luck it possessed was probably more than all the other Emperor Realm Ancient Beasts combined. But the difficulty of killing it, judging from the techniques they had displayed, was hopeless. Even escaping would be a challenge. Over there. Surprisingly, even though the first prince wanted to kill Suyu, he did not attack him. Instead, he gave him pointers. Suyu looked in the direction he was pointing. A palm-sized, inconspicuous crow was lying on the eaves of the ruins. It stared at Suyu coldly, its deathly still eyes giving off an indescribable pressure. For some reason, it will not come out for the time being, the first prince said slowly, staring at Suyu. The first prince spoke slowly as he stared at Suyu. Do you want to join us to hunt Emperor-level Ancient Beasts? Suyu chuckled. Do you have any ideas? That's right. I have a 4-beasts formation that can combine the attacks of 4 people into one. The first prince temporarily let go of his desire to kill Suyu and turned to cooperation. The beasts here, under the influence of the ruins, have increased their strength by more than 30%. They are almost as powerful as the double-crown Emperor-level beast. It is extremely difficult for a single crown emperor to kill them. Only the combined strength of 4 emperors can kill them. Oh? You want to invite me? The first prince nodded, then shook his head slightly. You can't join the 4-beasts formation just because you want to. Suyu only smiled. If you want to join us, you must first prove that you have the strength to rival the beast. The first prince stared at Suyu. How many beasts have you killed in half a month? The giant corpse-devouring centipede that you stole does not count. 0. Strictly speaking, Suyu had not killed the giant white-headed eagle and the great green snake by himself, although he had the ability to kill them with 1 strike. Then I'm very sorry. A look of contempt appeared in the first prince's eyes. Ao Xiang was even more disdainful. It seems like your strength is limited to a half-step martial emperor. The crown prince, the 9 divine princes, and him have each killed 1. You're not qualified to fight with us. On the side, Empress Ziwei sneered and snorted. It sounded so nice, but in the end, he didn't even have the qualifications to join hands with them. Suyu did not reply. Hee, if you're lacking people, why don't you let me join? A young man shrouded in a bloody mist suddenly leaped out from somewhere. This person's aura was extremely strange, giving people a terrifying feeling of ancient ferocious beasts. As soon as he appeared, he put a lot of pressure on everyone present. You work for Third Brother? The first prince frowned slightly. Suyu also looked over, and a thoughtful look appeared on his face. Among the third prince's troops, the only person he couldn't see through was the young man in the bloody mist. He felt a sense of danger from a wild beast. Oh? How many Emperor-level ancient beasts have you killed? The young man in the bloody mist said gloomily, Don't worry, I'll make sure you're satisfied. He patted the pocket at his waist, and 2 balls of national fortune flew out rapidly. 2. The first prince, Bei Wangchen, the 9 divine princes, and the bamboo-hatted man were all shocked. Most of the emperor-level ancient beasts in the ruins were gathered near this place, and there were very few scattered ancient beasts. It was not easy to encounter even one. The fact that he had killed 2 could only mean one thing: none of the ancient beasts he had discovered could escape from him. This person's strength was formidable and intimidating. What do you think? The young man in the bloody mist asked in a strange voice. The first prince nodded his head. Sure. He took out an ancient scroll, which expanded to 100 feet in width. There were 4 places on it for one to stand. Many strange runes were drawn in the middle, which could fuse the attacks of the 4 of them together. Here's how to use it. The first prince and the other 3 gathered near the 4 divine beasts formation and discussed in low voices. Su Yu, on the other hand, was left to the side and was ignored. After 2 hours, the 4 of them had a tacit understanding with each other. They adjusted their states and prepared to attack. Get ready. The first prince was the first to jump onto the ancient scroll, followed by the other 3. Ao Xiang glanced at Su Yu and sneered. What are you still standing here for? Are you going to take advantage of us again? Haha, I advise you to leave as soon as possible. This is a battle between the divine warriors of heaven and earth. If you are not careful, you will affect the surroundings. Don't lose your life then. The first prince also frowned slightly, a look of disgust in his eyes. Sixth brother, if you still have the self-awareness of a prince, please don't do things that are beneath your status. If you want to seize the position of the crown prince, do it in an upright manner. Don't play dirty tricks. The bamboo-hatted man did not say a word, but glanced at Su Yu lightly. The young man in the bloody mist stared deeply at Su Yu. His unseen eyes were filled with an inexplicable murderous intent. The intensity of his murderous intent was much deeper than the first prince's. It was as if he had an irreconcilable hatred for Su Yu. Faced with their sarcastic remarks, Su Yu's face was indifferent. He stood where he was and observed the situation. In their eyes, Su Yu was still unwilling to leave with the mentality of taking advantage of them. Empress Ziwei snorted even more disdainfully. She had already said so much, and yet he still refused to leave. Her eyes were filled with deep disdain. Attack! The first prince looked deeply at Su Yu for the last time. He maneuvered the ancient scroll and flew into the crowd of beasts. All of a sudden, a strengthened emperor-level ancient beast pounced on them. It inhaled deeply, intending to swallow the 4 of them. Emperor dominates the world. The first prince attacked first. An unparalleled sword light was waved out. Bei Wangchen's 9 phases unleashed 9 fist techniques that were comparable to the divine warriors. The bamboo-hatted man looked rather ordinary. He clapped his palms forward, and seemingly ordinary palm prints flew out. The attack of the young man in the bloody mist was surprisingly powerful. With a deafening roar, an extremely ferocious beast soul flew out. The 4 of them attacked at the same time. The runes of the ancient spell formation vibrated violently, twisting and fusing the 4 attacks into one point. With a loud boom, it shot out. Howl! The corpse of the giant corpse-devouring centipede fell to the ground. It had been killed in one blow. The first prince's heart skipped a beat. He immediately grabbed the destiny of the nation. The young man in the bloody mist had no intention of snatching it. He laughed weirdly and said, "The destiny of the nation is yours, but the corpse belongs to me." The first prince was shocked. The destiny of the nation was the most important thing in the ruins of Yu the Great. He was giving up the destiny of the nation in exchange for the corpse of the divine warrior? However, this was undoubtedly the best outcome for him. He agreed immediately. All right. Right at that moment, a black snake with a sharp horn on its head hissed and appeared. The four of them joined forces and killed it in one blow again. The destiny of the nation that they killed was still taken by the first prince. After killing two in a row, the first prince could not help but burst into laughter. He turned to look at Su Yu and cast him a contemptuous look. "It's a pity that I didn't give you the chance to take advantage of me." However, Su Yu had already drawn his giant bow. A jet-black arrow transformed into a flowing tube and shot out abruptly. Chirp! Before he could react, he heard the miserable shrieks of the emperor-level ancient beasts. A ferocious black tortoise was pierced through from its back to its belly. Its soul was destroyed immediately. The first prince was shocked. He stared at the jet-black giant bow in front of Su Yu in disbelief. How could this bow be so powerful? He had thought that it was just a decent giant bow. Who would have thought that its power was far beyond his imagination? What was that black tortoise? It was known for its defense. If the four beasts formation wanted to kill it, it would have to target its weak head. However, this bow had pierced through its hard shell. It was obvious how powerful it was. Bei Wangchen, Jiuxiang, the young man in the blood mist, and the man in the bamboo hat all stared at Su Yu in shock. The four of them had to work together to kill a strengthened emperor-level ancient beast. However, Su Yu could kill it alone. Didn't that mean that he was comparable to the four of them? Empress Ziwei's face was extremely stiff. Her eyes were still filled with contempt. However, she was petrified. On the other hand, Su Yu casually waved his hand, and the destiny of the nation and the arrow flew back into his hand. Then, he drew the giant bow again with a calm expression. Whoosh! The bowstring vibrated violently. A jet-black flowing light suddenly shot out. Instantly, another miserable shriek was heard. Another emperor-level ancient beast had been killed so easily. Everyone was horrified by the sight. The first prince's expression changed drastically. He shouted, "Hurry up! Hurry up!" The ancient formation rotated rapidly. The four of them attacked one after another. However, they used their strongest divine techniques every time, which consumed a lot of energy. Moreover, they had to maintain the four beasts formation. After 3 consecutive attacks, they had no choice but to stop to replenish their divine energy and desolate power. However, Su Yu looked very relaxed. He did not need to use any divine techniques at all. He could kill one effortlessly just by standing there and drawing the giant bow. While they were resting, he killed another 2. There were 13 emperor-level ancient beasts just now. In the blink of an eye, there were only 6 left. Su Yu killed 4 alone, and he did not seem to have any intention of stopping. "Continue, don't stop." The first prince felt a sense of crisis. He forced himself to focus and operate the ancient formation. The powerful emperor-level ancient beasts could only be crushed by the ancient formation and the giant bow. Whoosh! Whoosh! After a while, the remaining 6 ancient beasts were all killed. Both sides had obtained 3 each. In total, Su Yu had obtained 7, while they only had 6. Apart from the destiny of the nation, Su Yu did not let go of the corpses of the emperor-level ancient beasts. Although they seemed worthless in the ruins and could be found everywhere, they were very rare in the outside world. Coupled with the fact that they were cultivated in the ruins, many of them were rare breeds that were rarely seen in the outside world. On top of the ancient formation, the first prince's face was gloomy. He simply couldn't believe that Su Yu's power alone was able to suppress the 4 of them, even if they joined hands. What was that giant bow? Why was it so terrifying? In fact, even Su Yu himself was very surprised. He had estimated that it would be difficult for him to kill emperor-level ancient beasts. He thought that he could kill 1 or 2 at most. However, the power of the bow was extraordinary and terrifying. An emperor-level ancient beast was like a piece of paper in front of the bow. Even though it had been strengthened and its defense had been greatly enhanced, it was still vulnerable. Of course, this was also because the ancient beasts had low spiritual intelligence and only had instinctive fighting instincts. If it was like the divine warriors of heaven and earth in the outside world, who not only had rich and powerful fighting experience, but also had the most powerful chain of rules. It would be difficult to kill it with a single arrow. Chapter 1827. However, her eyes were still filled with determination. She had witnessed Bei Wangchen's true strength. The 9 xiangs in front of him weren't even the entirety of Bei Wangchen. To be exact, they weren't even 1/10 of Bei Wangchen. The eldest prince was behind by an entire emperor level of destiny. He could not help but feel his heartstrings tighten. He no longer believed that Su Yu had said that he had not killed a single emperor-level ancient beast on his way here. After all, with that terrifying giant bow, which ancient beast wouldn't die if they encountered it? In other words, apart from the 7 emperor-level ancient beasts and the 1 giant corpse-eating centipede, Su Yu didn't know whether he had more. He had to widen the gap between them. Otherwise, he might really lose the position of crown prince, which was so close to him. Kill that evil crow. The first prince fixed his gaze on the only ancient beast with double crowns. If Su Yu could obtain his nation's destiny, he wouldn't stand a chance even if he killed all the ancient beasts in the ruins. The ancient formation spun and unleashed a terrifying attack that could kill an Emperor Realm cultivator. In the face of the majestic fusion attack, the evil crows were negligible, as if they would be drowned in the next moment. But even when the attack was within 1,000 feet of it, there wasn't a single ripple in its deathly still eyes. With just a flap of its right wing, a gust of pitch-black wind swept out and actually swept back their combined attack. Bang! Caught off guard, the ancient formation suffered a fierce attack and collapsed on the spot. The 4 people above flew back in panic, avoiding the dangerous pitch-black gale. With a single strike, the combined attack of the 4 of them was broken. The first prince's eyes were filled with shock. Su Yu's eyes flashed. He was indeed worthy of being the double-crown divine warrior. Even if he was not as good as the double-crown heavens and earthly divine warriors in the outside world, he was not someone they could shake. At the very least, based on the strength they had displayed, it was exceptionally difficult. The crown prince gripped his golden sword tightly and cursed in his heart. Was this the end? The youth in the bloody mist chuckled. As expected of a dual-crown emperor-level ancient beast. Its strength is ridiculously powerful. Fortunately, it guards the ruins and disdains coming out to kill us. Otherwise, it would be difficult for us to even escape. The man in the bamboo hat remained silent and nodded. With the strength they displayed, wanting to shake the dual-crown emperor was like an ant trying to shake a tree. The 5 people present could be said to be the 5 strongest people who participated in the relic. If they couldn't do anything about it, there was basically no possibility of killing the evil crow. But the eldest prince didn't give up. He looked at the blood-shrouded youth with deep fear, and then turned to Jiuxiang. "Brother Chen, this is the only way." The 9 divine princes looked at the first prince and asked in unison, "Can you control what happens next?" The eldest prince nodded. "Take down this evil crow, and the situation will be settled. I still have Brother Jean, who you brought, and 200 elites. It won't be a problem to stabilize the situation," he said confidently. After pondering for a moment, Jiuxiang slowly nodded and said, "Okay, I will do my best to help you take down Xieya, but the rest is up to you." The crown prince bowed and said, "Thank you, Brother Chen. If you succeed, I will make you the heavenly imperial guardian." "Haha, since I've already chosen you, I will naturally do my best," Jiuxiang said indifferently. They glanced sideways at Su Yu, undisguised murderous intents in their eyes. "Actually, if you killed the 6th prince, you would still be able to secure victory. Unfortunately, the Empire's rules are strict, and we cannot attack the princes. The greatest threat in the entire relic was the 6th prince. If he was killed, no one would be able to threaten the first prince. Moreover, if he obtained the 6th prince's destiny, who could compete with him? If he dared to kill the 6th prince now, the grey-robed emperor, the monarch, and the entire empire would not let him off once he returned to the outside world. Regret was written all over his face. The first prince snorted and said, "Once we capture the evil crow, his good days will come to an end. Then we can only use a slightly more troublesome method," Jiu Xiang said indifferently. The 9 Supremes took a deep breath at the same time and formed strange seals with both hands. They were mysterious and difficult to understand, appearing very profound. Beams of powerful aura circled around the 9 divine princes. Their figures gradually became blurry and transparent. Before long, the 9 Supremes all disappeared, leaving only the gradually merging aura and the distant chanting of incantations. "What is this?" Su Yu's brows twitched for no reason. Empress Ziwei trembled with excitement, her eyes filled with admiration. She could not help but exclaim, "He has appeared! Bei Wangchen's true body is about to descend." True body. Su Yu had long heard that Bei Wangchen cultivated the extraordinary technique of heaven and earth, the 9 divine princes technique. He cultivated his avarice, anger, stupidity, and other personalities into clones and trained them independently. Once the clones reached their limits and merged into one, they would explode with terrifying strength. This kind of cultivation method was basically lost, and no one would cultivate it. Because if one of the clones failed to cultivate it to perfection, the entire cultivation process would be affected, and there would be no way out. But Bei Wangchen not only dared to do it, but he also succeeded. He cultivated all 9 divine princes to the peak of half-martial emperor. The reason why he did not merge the 9 divine princes into one was that he wanted to see the ruins of the Great Yu and help the first prince seize the position of the crown prince. The restrictions of the ruins of the Great Yu were that only those below the martial emperor level were allowed to enter, with the exception of the princes. He was the first prince's true trump card. He alone was comparable to 1,000 people. 9 divine princes into one. The blurry chanting stopped abruptly and was replaced by a thunderous heavenly voice. The entire ruins began to tremble, as if a powerful being that could not be contained was forcefully squeezing into the ruins. Somewhere, an evil red-clothed man was sitting on a mountain peak and drinking dragon blood from a gourd. Suddenly, he looked into the depths of the ruins and grinned evilly. He, interesting. Besides me, there is another double-crown martial emperor. Many people who were hunting ancient beasts in various places of the ruins were attracted by the abnormal trembling. Princess Ru Chun was killing an ancient beast that was a mystic crystal overlord. She suddenly looked into the distance. Such a powerful phenomenon, it is affecting the entire ruins. She hesitated for a moment, then gritted her teeth. He is preparing a kingdom for me, how can I be a coward? Let's go and check it out. In various places, the second prince, the third prince, the fourth prince, and the fifth prince all sensed the phenomenon from the depths of the ruins. After thinking for a long time, they decided to rush over and check it out. In the ruins of the palace by the lake, the booming voice of 9 divine princes into one sounded like rolling thunder in everyone's ears. At the peak of the sky, an enormous whirlpool was spinning. The divine energy of the entire ruins was stirred up and crazily gathered at this place. Imperceptibly, the aura of a half-step martial emperor soared crazily. In the blink of an eye, the aura of a martial emperor reached the level of a primordial desolation. However, the rise of the aura didn't stop, or it was just the beginning. 1 crown martial emperor in the early stage. 1 crown martial emperor in the middle stage. 1 crown martial emperor in the late stage. 1 crown martial emperor in the peak stage. The aura kept rising and reached the peak stage of the crown martial emperor in one breath, surpassing the first prince. Moreover, it didn't stop, until an oppressive aura descended into the world. The aura of a double-crown martial emperor. Even the deathly eyes of the evil crow finally showed signs of movement. It quickly spread its retracted wings and let out strange caws, as if it was facing a great enemy. The man in the bamboo hat and the youth in the bloody mist stared at the figure that was gradually forming in the whirlpool. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. The first prince's eyes were filled with complicated emotions. He was jealous and envious, but most of all, he was ashamed of his inferiority. People often listed him and Bei Wangqin as the strongest geniuses of the Jiu Empire. However, only a few people knew that as an emperor of heaven and earth, he wasn't qualified to be mentioned in the same breath as Bei Wangqin. They were geniuses from two different worlds. One was the world on the ground and the other was the world in the sky. This is Bei Wangqin's true power. In front of him, the so-called geniuses are just a joke. Empress Ziwei looked at Su Yu with pity. That's why I said you are a frog at the bottom of a well. You know nothing about geniuses. Su Yu's eyes were filled with surprise. It was no wonder that Bei Wangqin shocked the civilization and resounded throughout the time and space of the current era. He had reached the level of the double-crown martial emperor before the age of 30. It was no exaggeration to look up to him. When the whirlpool stopped, the aura finally stopped at the early stage of the double-crown martial emperor. An elegant youth in a white robe with 9 blood-red marks between his brows descended gracefully. Every step he took and every expression was full of special meaning. He stared at the evil crow and took a step forward with his hands clasped behind his back. The evil crow soared into the sky and flapped its wings. 2 ferocious tornadoes swept over. Bei Wangqin didn't even look at it. He said indifferently, "Accept your fate." No matter how the tornadoes hit him, they couldn't move him at all. Instead, he waved his hand casually. Not only did he disperse the pitch-black tornadoes, but he also sent the evil crow flying. Pitch-black feathers fell from the sky. The evil crow looked terrified. They were both double-crown martial emperors, but their powers weren't on the same level. Caw! The evil crow shrieked and let out a headache-splitting shriek. The people below hurriedly protected their bodies with their divine powers and retreated quickly. The shriek reached the depths of their souls and had a destructive power that could destroy their souls. Apart from the first prince, Su Yu was the only one who didn't move. If the people below were in such a state, it wasn't hard to imagine what kind of powerful soul attack Bei Wangqin was facing. However, he still didn't move, and his expression didn't change at all. I said, "Accept your fate." Bei Wangqin ignored the soul attack and stepped forward to slap it. Sizzle! 9 chains attacked at the same time and wrapped around the evil crow. Hiss! 9 chains of law. The second prince, who happened to be nearby, drew a cold breath when he saw this scene. 9 chains of law. The martial emperors were undefeatable with 1 chain of law. With 9 chains of law, who could rival them at the same level? As expected, the evil crow's body instantly turned dull after being bombarded by the 9 rules. It lost 70 to 80% of its life force in an instant. Bei Wangqin had beaten the evil crow half to death with a casual strike. Even if the gray-robed martial emperor were to fight Bei Wangqin, he would most likely lose. He was ridiculously powerful. The last strike. Bei Wangqin calmly slapped at the evil crow. The evil crow's face was filled with despair. There was no chance of survival. Empress Ziwei was so emotional that tears streamed down her face. "Lord Qin, I will follow you forever and never leave you." She turned to look at Su Yu, wanting to know his current expression. But what startled her was that there was only an afterimage where he had been standing. Sizzle! At the same time, a change occurred in the sky above the battle. A sharp sound, like a sharp object cutting through paper, reverberated through the sky without warning. The indifferent Bei Wangqin's expression changed drastically. He retracted his palm and retreated quickly. His eyes widened as he stared at the broken corner of the chain of law. He lost his voice in shock. The rules were damaged? Who? Chapter 1828. Please enter the text. Su Yu. Glaring at Su Yu coldly, Bei Wangqin continued to look around and yelled, "Who attacked? Don't be sneaky anymore." He didn't believe it was Su Yu who attacked. Damage to laws was something that could only happen in a battle of laws between sovereign realm cultivators. Apart from that, only those Tao artifacts that only existed in legends could easily damage them. He didn't believe a small overlord could master a mythical Tao artifact. The only explanation was that there was a powerful expert hiding nearby that he hadn't noticed. The first prince, the young man in the bloody mist, and the bamboo hat man all had different expressions. The first prince also didn't believe Suyu. No one knew better than him that the rules were so strong that no divine technique or treasure could damage them. It was an existence that originated from heaven and earth. It was a kind of Tao that existed between illusion and reality. Who could damage the Tao that originated from heaven and earth? Apart from the chain of rules that originated from Tao, only the Tao artifacts created by the Pathmasters could do so. He had a bad feeling. Could there be another powerful expert hiding in this fight for the fate of the nation? Could the other party be like Bei Wangchun, avoiding the detection of the ruins and sneaking in quietly? The bloody mist on the surface of the young man in the bloody mist surged. He stared at Suyu with a pair of dim yellow eyes and grinned. Is it really you? I don't believe you're stronger than me after so many years. The bamboo hat man couldn't help but clench his fist. He chuckled softly. His laughter was filled with nostalgia, fighting intent, and even a little regret. I thought I had left you far behind, and the gap between us was like heaven and earth. I didn't expect Suyu to be Suyu after all. Even the wicked girl couldn't destroy you. Is a battle inevitable between you and me? From the Jojo continent to the myriad of galaxies, and then to the ancient god realm. They had always been the top heaven rulers in their respective regions, and they could be called kings. The strange thing was, perhaps it was fate, but they had never fought before. At last, he stared at Suyu and sighed. Suyu, let me see how strong you are now. A strong wind was blowing in the sky. A bird and two people stood in the sky. Bei Wangchen didn't care about Suyu at all. Even though Suyu was right in front of him, he didn't care about him at all. When Suyu appeared and heard him looking for someone, he merely chuckled. Zhang Xian turned around and glared at Xie. Without saying a word, he flicked his wrist, and a bracelet appeared on his wrist. Threads invisible to the naked eye shot out from it. As a dual-crown monarch, Xie naturally noticed the existence of the threads. Fear flowed in his eyes, and he spread his wings and fled, not even thinking of fighting back. Suyu's expression was calm. As he clenched his fist, the silk threads that were flying around changed in an instant. They intertwined to form a giant net, which enveloped the evil crow in the air. Chi, the evil crow, was horrified. It kept flapping its wings in fear, releasing an incomparably powerful pitch-black hurricane. However, under the giant net they were all cut into pieces. The evil crow's body was cut into 6 pieces. This scene caused the first prince to be extremely astonished. The sudden change also caused the blood mist youth's expression to change drastically. He shouted angrily in a low voice, "Impossible! How could he have become so strong?" His expression suddenly changed, and the blood mist on the surface of his body became even thicker, concealing his appearance even deeper. The savage, ferocious energy that he had released wantonly was withdrawn like a tide. His arrogance was completely restrained, for fear of being noticed by Suyu. The plated bamboo hat man laughed, his fighting spirit bursting forth. As expected, my opponent is only you. Bei Wangchen, who was looking for the enemy, was shocked. He had destroyed the body of the dual-crown monarch with one move. It's you. Bei Wangchen's heart was in turmoil. The one who had damaged his nomological chains just now was actually this insignificant kid in front of him. Suyu did not pay any attention to them. He took the opportunity to smash the evil crow's broken body to prevent future trouble. You are not qualified to touch my things. Bei Wangchen bellowed as if he was facing a great enemy. The 9 law chains came at Suyu. Suyu creased his brows. He had no choice but to withdraw the silk threads to form a giant net to block the attack. However, the giant net sank, and the 9 law chains could not penetrate the law. Immediately after, Su Yu twisted his wrist, and the giant net twisted and turned, breaking the 9 law chains. Crack! One of the chains was unusually fragile, and it was cut off immediately. The damage to the law affected his body. Bei Wangchen roared in pain, "My proud phase chain!" He hurriedly withdrew the 9 chains, his eyes filled with hatred and resentment. "If I had known this would happen, I would have come out of seclusion at all costs and gone to the Sea of Constellations to kill you personally." Among the 9 xiangs, only the proud phase was not complete. The reason was that it had been defeated by Su Yu twice, which became a regret of the proud phase. The law that it had condensed was much weaker because of this. This was also why it could be broken easily. Don't flatter yourself. You said it as if you were at the peak of the 9 xiangs. You should be glad that you did not come back then. Otherwise, I would have killed every one of the 9 xiangs. If 9 came, I would have killed all 9 of them. At that time, Bei Wangchen's 9 xiangs had not reached the peak, and he could not combine them into one. For Su Yu, it was only a matter of time before he killed 9 half-martial emperors. However, from Bei Wangchen's tone, it was as if he had let Su Yu escape because of his carelessness. "Then let me show you the power of a double-crowned divine warrior." Bei Wangchen weaved signs to cast a powerful divine technique. At that moment, the 6 parts of Xie Ye's body, which had been cut into pieces, fused back into one. Moreover, a frightening black wind surrounded his body, causing him to turn into a beam of light as he continued to fly forward. The double-crowned divine warrior did not die so easily. Even if his body was destroyed, he could recover in an instant. Not good. Xie Ye is trying to escape. The first prince's expression changed abruptly as he reminded Bei Wangchen. However, Bei Wangchen turned a deaf ear to him. He only had eyes for Su Yu. People like him, who were more arrogant than the sky, either considered everyone beneath them or only had eyes for one person. Su Yu did not hesitate. He turned around and grasped. The giant net made of silk was about to envelop Xie Ye once again. However, at that moment, Bei Wangchen suddenly attacked. Vajra 9 angry palm. He no longer cast the law chain. Instead, he cast a divine technique to crush Bei Wangchen with his extremely high cultivation level. The Vajra 9 angry palm was a divine technique that complemented the 9 xiangs' divine technique. It was extremely powerful. When cultivated to the extreme, a strike from a half-martial emperor was comparable to a martial emperor. When cast by the double-crowned divine warrior, its power was even more earth-shattering. As the palm struck, even the heavens and the earth dimmed. The whole world seemed to cave in. A sense of fear and trepidation welled up in the hearts of the crowd, forcing them to speed up their retreat from the battlefield. If the double-crowned divine warrior was in front of this palm, the palm's wind alone would be enough to kill him. The first prince's eyes trembled. He swallowed hard. That is Bei Wangchen's true power. Empress Ziwei's eyes were filled with admiration. The determination in her eyes deepened. The person I follow must be the number 1 in the world. No one can compare to him. With a palm strike, who could compete with him? The tiny figure of the overlord was like an ant in the world. In the face of such a shocking power, it could only be destroyed. However, Su Yu's expression remained calm from beginning to end. It was so calm that it bordered on contempt. He stared at the incoming palm strike calmly. It was only when it was 1,000 feet away from his body that he finally lifted a finger and pointed at the immensely powerful palm strike from afar. A strand of strange power pulsed from his fingertip, condensing into an inconspicuous small blade. With a flick of his fingertip, the small blade flew out. Compared to the majestic and peerless palm strike, the small blade was negligible. Bei Wangchen's eyes were filled with disdain. An ant trying to shake a tree. You overestimate yourself. He pushed with his palm, and the heaven-destroying palm strike descended at a faster speed. However, an unbelievable scene appeared before everyone's eyes. The small blade rotated gently, and the oncoming palm strike was completely devoured by the sharp blade. Not even a trace of palm energy was left. The earth-shattering palm strike was gone, and only the inconspicuous small blade was left spinning quietly. The first prince and Empress Ziwei were stunned. They did not understand what had happened. Only Bei Wangchen, who was close at hand, had a stiff expression. He stared at the small blade with a hint of vigilance in his eyes. He said in a stern voice, "Space Divine Technique." To be precise, it was the space blade. This was Su Yu's latest understanding of space. It used the unique devouring ability of space to devour everything, be it people or divine technique. It was similar to the devouring ability of the Tao Tai's eyes. The difference was that after being devoured by the Tao Tai's eyes, one could still survive in the Tao Tai's stomach. After being devoured by the space blade, one would be drawn into the world of nothingness and perish. Bei Wangchen's expression finally changed. An inexplicable sense of threat arose in his heart. He had never thought that anyone in the Du Empire was stronger than him. However, the young man in front of him gave him a sense of threat that he had never felt before. A mere overlord ant should be proud of himself for being able to block a blow from me. However, that is all. What you have seen is just the tip of the iceberg of the Double Crown Emperor. The aura around him swirled abruptly. He took a deep breath and bellowed, "Angry Vajrapam, proud Vajrapam, sad Vajrapam." The 9 Vajrapam was a complementary cultivation technique of the 9 Vajra divine technique. Each Vajra cultivates a single palm. The proud Vajra cultivates the proud Vajrapam, while the slave Vajra cultivates the angry Vajrapam. The attack just now was just one of the palms. 9. Palm. Return. 1. 9 palm prints flew out simultaneously, forming a 9-petal lotus. It was filled with the ultimate strength of Bei Wangchen's 9 personalities. The combination of the 9 ultimate strengths was terrifying, comparable to a middle-stage Double Crown Emperor. Even if the gray-robed Emperor was present, he would not dare to resist it recklessly. I didn't expect that the first person Bei Wangchen, defeated by the 9 incarnations united as one, was just a mere overlord. What a disgrace to the 9 incarnations' divine technique. Bei Wangchen closed his eyes slowly. His eyes were filled with regret. Su Yu, you are strong enough to laugh at the world. The 9 petals pressed down from the sky, leaving Su Yu with nowhere to run or hide. The first prince shook his head and said indifferently, "Although the 6th prince is strong, how can he be compared to Bei Wangchen? Bei Wangchen is a god, an unsurpassable god." Ziwei's eyes were filled with pity. "It's a pity that you are the frog at the bottom of the well." From their point of view, there was no suspense in the outcome. A power 9 times stronger than before was not something a small space blade could devour. Su Yu, who was in a desperate situation, did not panic as the crowd had expected. Chapter 1829. Please enter the main text. He pointed at Bei Wangchen from afar. A wisp of space radiance condensed in his palm and flew out. Bei Wangchen said disdainfully, "As I said, a mere space blade can't do anything to me." His words came to an abrupt end, and he couldn't continue. Because inside Su Yu's body, numerous space blades were shooting out like bamboo shoots after the rain. There were hundreds of them. Creak! The sharp blades flew in unison, like peerless ferocious creatures awakening in the universe, crazily devouring everything in their path. Not even a trace of the 9-petal palm print was left. It was completely devoured by the sharp blades that blotted out the sky and the earth. No. Bei Wangchen let out a desperate roar. However, the space blades cut through his body mercilessly. Puff! Around his body, there was only a cloud of blood mist drifting. The number 1 heaven ruler of the Du Empire was killed in the blink of an eye. However, at this moment, the cloud of blood mist emitted a shocking life force, and a figure flew out from it. It was Bei Wang-chun. However, compared to a moment ago, his aura had obviously dropped by 1/9. The crowd heaved a sigh of relief. A double-crown emperor wouldn't die so easily. Ziwei's incredulous eyes regained their luster. She said excitedly, "He won't be defeated so easily. No one in this world can rival him. He will fight again." Unexpectedly, Bei Wang-chun turned into a sharp arrow and shot toward the top of the sky above the ruins. With a casual grab, he crushed the clouds in the sky, revealing the essence of the sky above the ruins, a seal. Without any hesitation, Bei Wang-chun slammed his palm on the seal. The seal was triggered, and it sensed the presence of a double-crown emperor that exceeded the limit. A fluorescent light descended and enveloped Bei Wang-chun, transporting him out quickly. He was escaping. Su Yu looked at him indifferently, his eyes full of disdain. The number 1 heaven ruler of the Dew Empire is just SOSO. With a casual wave of his hand, another large number of space blades appeared. However, the next moment they disappeared into thin air. When they reappeared, they were inside Bei Wang-chun's body. With a miserable scream, Bei Wang-chun was once again killed into a cloud of blood mist. However, a moment later, another Bei Wang-chun appeared in the blood mist. His aura dropped by 1/9 again. After 2 drops, he had fallen from a double-crown emperor to the peak of a single-crown emperor. In the end, Su Yu waved another space blade. Bei Wang-chun took the opportunity to teleport out. However, during the teleportation process, it was crushed into pieces for the 3rd time. Faintly, Bei Wang-chun's furious roar could be heard. "Su Yu, you and I are absolutely irreconcilable." A trace of coldness flashed across Su Yu's mouth. "You will need to have the opportunity first." Teleportation. He clasped his hands behind his back. He didn't seem to make any movements, but the blood fog that had been teleported away by the restriction was actually teleported back. When a figure whose aura had fallen to the late stage of the sovereign realm walked out of the blood mist, he was greeted with another round of strangulation. "Ah, I won't let you off." Bei Wang-chun could only let out a scream before he was annihilated again. The eyes of the crowd below were filled with shock. The dignified double-crown martial emperor, a heaven ruler of the Dew Empire, was no match for Su Yu, a space expert. He did not even have the right to escape. For the 4th time, Bei Wang-chun appeared. He no longer had any intention to continue fighting. Panic finally appeared on his face as he shouted, "Stop, there is no dead end between us." What answered him was being strangled again. For the 5th time, Bei Wang-chun's face was full of panic. He begged for mercy. "Your Royal Highness, please have mercy on me. I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai." However, the space blade strangled him mercilessly. For the 6th time. Without hesitation, Bei Wang-chun turned into a sharp arrow and fled toward the first prince. He screamed in terror, "Save me!" The first prince seemed to have woken up from a dream. He said hurriedly, "Quick! Stop him now!" All of this was a complete dream, a nightmare for him. The youth in the blood mist hesitated for a moment before nodding reluctantly. "I don't believe he is so strong." The man in the bamboo hat also hesitated for a moment before he chuckled softly. "Haha, don't overdo it. Let me try his space divine technique." The first prince took the lead, brandishing his huge golden sword with great vigor. When Su Yu was about to annihilate Bei Wang-chun for the 6th time, the 3 of them charged toward him together. Surprisingly, the youth in the blood mist and the man in the bamboo hat displayed the strength of the sovereign realm, which was no weaker than the first prince. Although their realms had not reached the sovereign realm, their cultivation techniques or special constitutions allowed them to explode with strength far beyond their realms. Even the first prince was shocked. The strength of the 2 men was above his. Their attack had saved Bei Wang-chun from that attack. Bei Wang-chun still had a lingering fear. His eyes were filled with horror. he said in a trembling voice. How could he be so strong? The first prince's heart was heavy. Perhaps this is the reason why the grey-robed sovereign realm expert took a liking to him, to master one of the 8 great laws. Although they had heard how earth-shattering it was to master one of the 8 great laws, they had their own pride in their hearts. But in their hearts they had their own pride, and they refused to accept it. It was not until they encountered it personally that they realized how terrifying the 8 great laws were. An overlord who had just condensed the law without the sovereign realm could crush the double-crowned sovereign realm expert. 4 against 1? Suyu smiled with his hands clasped behind his back. He was facing the 4 of them alone. His expression was relaxed, but the 4 of them looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Come at me together while you still have the chance to attack. If it was in the past, his words would only be met with mockery. But at this moment no one could laugh. The 4 of them looked at each other and attacked one after another. Among them, Bei Wangchen's abilities were the strongest. The plated bamboo hat man and the blood-shrouded youth were on par. The first prince was the weakest. The 4 of them represented the strongest existences of the younger generation of the Diu Empire. With their combined strength, they could defeat all the strong enemies of the same cultivation level. But Suyu, who was opposite them, laughed casually. The space energy in his body rose rapidly. In an instant, a boundless and terrifying space energy rose to its limit. Destroy! Rumble! The compressed space energy suddenly turned into countless sharp blades, shooting out from his body and piercing through the surroundings. Moreover, the sharp blades disappeared in the air. When they reappeared, they were all inside their bodies. The expressions of the 4 of them changed drastically. They did not dare to stay any longer, retreating hurriedly. Wherever they stood, the space blades quietly swallowed and spat out pieces of space blades. The other 3 were fine, but the first prince retreated a little too slowly. One of his legs was devoured, and blood splattered wildly. But before the 3 of them were ready to fight again, they heard Suyu say softly, "Explode." The sharp blades of space exploded for the second time, turning into countless tiny sharp blades of space that shot out abruptly. Dodge! The 4 of them retreated hurriedly, looking shocked and bewildered. Second explosion. But it did not stop. The countless tiny sharp blades exploded for the second time, shooting out tiny needle-like sharp blades of space. No matter how cautious they were, how could they defend themselves against a second explosion? All of a sudden, all 4 of them were hit. Their bodies were pierced by the tiny sharp blades of space, riddling them with holes. Third explosion. The needle-like sharp blades of space exploded again, turning into hair-thin sharp blades of space. At this point, the faces of the 4 of them were extremely gloomy. Without any hesitation, they retreated thousands of miles away, staring at Suyu with different expressions. The first prince's face was full of despair, and Bei Wangchen had lost all will to fight. The youth in the bloody mist hesitated for a moment, then turned around and fled. The man in the bamboo hat smiled bitterly. "Forget it. Before I get that sword, I am no match for him." When he finished speaking, he also turned around and fled. In the blink of an eye, only the first prince and Bei Wangchen were left. Seeing the 2 of them retreating, Bei Wangchen did not hesitate. He cupped his hands at the first prince and said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you. First prince, please don't look for me again. As long as the 6th prince of the Diu Empire exists, I, Bei Wangchen, will never set foot in this place again." The first prince was in complete despair. "Wait," Suyu said calmly. Bei Wangchen felt his blood run cold. When he turned around, his eyes were filled with deep fear. After pondering for a moment, he bowed and said, "Bei Wangchen admits defeat. 6th Prince, please be merciful and spare my life." Even the space transfer of the Diu relic could not help him escape, let alone escape by flying. "Don't you want to seek revenge?" Suyu stared at him. Bei Wangchen lowered his head even more. If you are slightly stronger than me, I, Bei Wangchen, will not accept it and will definitely seek revenge. However, if you are too much stronger than me, there will only be respect, no hatred. This was the norm in the martial arts world. A difference of 1 grade would make people jealous and unwilling. However, if it was a difference of 10 levels, then it would cause others to be fearful and not dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect. As for hatred, unless it was a blood feud, people would swallow it. Su Yu had killed several of Bei Wangchen's incarnations with a single sword strike, forcefully turning him from a double crown emperor to a single crown emperor. It would take at least 100 years for him to return to his peak. His hatred was neither too great nor too small. However, in the face of the absolute gap in strength, he could only choose to forget about it. Seeing the sincere admiration in his eyes, Su Yu's murderous intent faded gradually. You can leave, but bring her along. Su Yu glanced at Empress Ziwei. Bei Wangchen glanced sideways and thought for a moment before remembering her name. I remember her name is Ziwei, right? Why should I bring her along? She is your staunchest follower and most loyal believer, Su Yu said with his hands clasped behind his back. Bei Wangchen shook his head, unable to hide the disdain in his eyes. She is but a frog at the bottom of a well who has lost her sense of self. She can only see me but cannot see the real sky. Such a person will only rely on the strong, and her achievements in this life will be limited. Since the 6th prince has captured her, she will belong to the 6th prince from now on. Bei Wangchen will take his leave now. He left indifferently without even looking at Empress Ziwei. Empress Ziwei stood blankly on the spot. Her eyes were hollow as if she had lost her soul. When Bei Wangchen was defeated again and again, she still had a glimmer of hope that Bei Wangchen would make a comeback one day. However, his last words pushed her into a bottomless pit of ice, and her heart and soul became icy cold. His words were almost exactly the same as what Su Yu had said. She was, after all, a frog at the bottom of a well who had lost her sense of self. Su Yu glanced at her indifferently before withdrawing his gaze expressionlessly. He looked toward the sky and said, seeing the well as the sky has its limits, seeing oneself as a genius is the correct path of martial art. The absent-minded Empress Ziwei trembled, as if she had been struck by lightning. Chapter 1830. Please enter the text, then grab the sword, turn around, and leave. Thank you, I'm sorry. Before leaving, she looked back at the godlike heaven-prideful king, the man who once stood on the same starting line as her. Thank you, thank him for saving her life, and thank him for enlightening her. Sorry for her betrayal in the past. She got up and looked in the direction of the Sea of Constellations. Perhaps, only by returning to the place where she started could she start anew. The youth in the bloody mist fled to the middle of the ruins before stopping. He clenched his fists tightly, and the blood mist on the surface of his body tumbled, revealing his true appearance. If Su Yu were here, he would certainly recognize him. He was a formidable enemy who had been haunting him since the Zhenlong continent. Gu Taishu. I have the body of the 9 gods, but I still can't defeat him. Gu Taishu's face was gloomy. He used to think that he had far surpassed the past, surpassed Su Yu. Su Yu was like dust in front of him, no longer worthy of being his enemy. He could crush Su Yu as easily as crushing an ant. As early as the day the 6th prince returned to the royal family and announced it to the world, he was shocked to find that the lifelong enemy who had stolen his woman and all his glory had also come to the Du Empire and disguised himself as the 6th prince. At that moment, he was shocked and ecstatic. He had thought that the other party was in the Tao Tai cage, and he would never be able to take revenge. But who would have thought that the other party had come to the Du Empire? Therefore, he disguised himself and joined the 3rd prince's team. His purpose was to stand in front of Su Yu as Gu Taishu and give him a huge surprise. Unexpectedly, just as he was about to reveal his identity and prepare to take revenge on Su Yu had exploded with terrifying strength, giving him a huge surprise. With the strength of a single person, he had crushed the Double Crown Emperor. The strongest heaven rulers of the 4 empires were no match for him even if they joined forces. He couldn't help but feel sad. Was he incompetent, or was Su Yu too nature-defying? Obviously, he was also a top-notch heaven ruler, and obviously he also had great luck and fortune. But why was the other party always above him? In the midst of his rage, a young girl's voice, like silver bells, came into view. Little ducks, swim, swim, swim to the stone shore, one left, one right, quack quack quack. Gu Taishu separated the plants and swept his gaze forward. He couldn't help but be slightly stunned. A 16-year-old girl dressed in colorful clothes was holding a bottle of precious spirit milk in her left hand and a ball of freshly roasted emperor-grade ancient beast meat in her right hand. A mouthful of spirit milk and a mouthful of meat. He hummed an indistinct nursery rhyme. "Where did you get it?" Gu Taishu was a little surprised. He could not see through the girl's cultivation at all. To be precise, there were no waves of divine power coming from her. Yet the other party was able to eat emperor-level ancient beasts. This was truly bizarre. After pondering for a while, Gu Taishu felt relieved. So what if it was strange? Could it be that he was an emperor? The rules of the Great Ruins forbade emperors from entering. As long as she was below the emperor level, Gu Taishu could crush her as easily as crushing an ant. An ominous glint flashed in his eyes. "Humph, consider yourself unlucky to have met me." His chest was full of anger, but he had nowhere to vent it. He stomped on a large patch of grass and trees in front of him and appeared fiercely. He snorted coldly, "You're eating happily." The girl in colorful clothes turned her head and muttered, "I hate people who disturb my meals the most." But then, the girl in colorful clothes let out a soft cry of surprise. She stared at the blood mist on the young man's body in disbelief. She seemed to have discovered something, and then her eyes flashed brightly. She dropped the piece of emperor-level ancient beast meat in her hand and stood up abruptly. She asked in a charming voice, "Big brother, what's your name?" Gu Taishu was slightly stunned. Not only did he not frighten her with his ferocious look, but she was also not afraid of him at all. This was interesting. Gu Taishu's murderous intent weakened considerably. "Gu Taishu, what about you?" "My name is Xiao Dai," the girl in colorful clothes said. She stared at him and said in a crisp voice, "Brother Taishu, I'm hungry. Can I borrow some food from you?" "Xiao Dai. What an ordinary name. What do you want? Tell me." Gu Taishu did not notice that Xiao Dai was drooling and her eyes were shining. Near the ruins, only Su Yu and the first prince were left. The first prince stared at Su Yu with indignation in his eyes. Was this the end? There was no one else in the ruins who was Su Yu's match. No one could rob him of his national destiny. On the contrary, he should be worried about whether he could keep his own national destiny. There was only one rule in the ruins of the Great Yu, and that was not to kill the princes and princesses. Su Yu only robbed and did not kill, so the rule could not stop him. First Prince, hand it over. Whatever he wanted, he got it. Su Yu looked down at him with a faint smile. His heart skipped a beat, and he clutched his pocket tightly. This was his last asset, and he could not let Su Yu take it away. "How about I exchange a piece of information for you not robbing me of my national destiny?" the first prince said hesitantly. "What kind of information is important enough to compete for the position of crown prince?" Su Yu said with a faint smile. He did not think the first prince could move him. To others, this information may be insignificant, but it is extremely important to you. The first prince's eyes shone brightly. "It's about your tempering of the chain of rules." Su Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. If it was some kind of spiritual treasure, he would not care about it. But tempering the chain of rules, it was a top priority for him. Why could Bei Wangchen control the 9 chain of rules and suppress his peers? It was because the 9 divine symbols had each comprehended a complete chain of rules. At present, Su Yu had only comprehended the space law, and he was already powerful enough to crush all living beings. Imagine if he succeeded in condensing the other laws. By then, how powerful would he be when he became a martial emperor? The pursuit of the sinful lady palace would no longer be a threat to him. If you have something to say, I can agree to it. Su Yu made a decision quickly. The first prince's face relaxed. All right, let's make an oath. No problem. The two of them made an oath right away. The first prince was completely relieved after getting his oath. He said, "Do you know that the Dark Star civilization sent an emissary to the Dew Empire to participate in the Path Reign?" Of course I know, Su Yu thought to himself. Could it be related to the Dark Star civilization? I communicated with the emissary of the Dark Star civilization in private, and I learned that the Dark Star civilization found a cavern of the ancient Path Master, the first prince said slowly. Su Yu looked calm. So what if it was a cavern of the ancient Path Master? It was not like he had never been there before. The legacy of the faceless Buddha in the Sea of Constellations was still in his hands. He had also seen the doctrine artifacts and elixir cauldrons of the Dusty Sand civilization. There were not many things left in the caverns of the Path Masters who had passed away a long time ago, so they were not very attractive. At least, Su Yu was not very interested. That's all. His eyes turned slightly cold. The first prince secretly clicked his tongue. You are not tempted by the Path Master's cavern? How high are your standards? Besides that, a sword was unearthed in the cavern, causing the entire Dark Star civilization to fall into chaos. All parties are fighting for the sword. The first prince frowned. These emissaries of the Dark Star civilization are here to observe the Path Reign in name, but they are actually here to seek refuge. A sword that triggered the entire civilization to fight for it? If it were a doctrine artifact, it would not have been like this. If it were not used by the Path Master himself, the sword would be like scrap metal in the hands of others. The elixir cauldron of the Dusty Sand civilization, the Golden Lady of the Sinful Lady Palace, did not even look at it. She just left it there. It was obvious that the doctrine artifact was only famous, but in reality it was useless. What sword? A true Emperor-level divine weapon, the Emperor-killing sword. Su Yu's pupils shrank abruptly. One of the 4 pieces of the Emperor set, the Emperor-killing sword. How could he forget that the divine warrior of Tianyun of the ancient god realm of 9 dragons had captured the fate of the Emperor set for Zhan Wushuang, the born emperor? Those 4 items were destined to belong to Zhan Wushuang. Among them, the Emperor-killing sword was the second Emperor-based saint artifact. Although the Great Beginning Realm and the Ancient God Realm of 9 Dragons had different rankings for Emperor-based saint artifacts and true Emperor-level divine weapons. However, the Emperor-killing sword was definitely a top true Emperor-level divine weapon in the Great Beginning Realm. An entire 4-star civilization was in turmoil, which showed how precious this sword was. Is it this sword? Haha, what a coincidence! He was interested in the Emperor-killing sword, but not very much. He had not fully mastered the Royal Dragon Sword, so what was the use of another Emperor-killing sword? Does this sword have anything to do with the tempering rules you mentioned? Su Yu asked. The first prince's eyes were filled with greed. Because the Emperor-killing sword is one of the ancient swords of the Ecliptic Palace. I believe you are familiar with the ancient swords of the palace, right? How could he be unfamiliar with it? The Tao reign of the Dew Empire was controlled and descended by an ancient sword of the Ecliptic Palace. You mean? Su Yu was tempted. The first prince said slowly, That's right, that sword can summon Tao reign. Back then, for some reason, this sword was stolen by a Path Master who betrayed the Ecliptic Palace, and its whereabouts have been unknown ever since. It has been 100 million years since then. If not for the accidental discovery of that Path Master's cavern, I'm afraid this sword would have been completely buried in the sands of time. If you can seize this sword, haha, you can imagine it. You will have endless Tao reign, and you can comprehend any great path you wish. Su Yu was completely tempted. He did not know if the Emperor Killing Sword still had the ability to summon Tao reign. However, he would rather believe it than not. Apart from Tao reign, it would be difficult to find another auxiliary divine item that could help Su Yu comprehend the 8 great laws. No matter what, he had to find out. If you intend to seize this sword, you'd better do it as soon as possible. Putting aside the increasingly intense competition in the Dark Star civilization, I think it won't be long before the news reaches the ears of the Ecliptic Palace. By then, any Path Master can come and retrieve the Emperor Killing Sword, and everyone can only watch helplessly. Indeed, to help Princess Rukin seize the position of the Crown Prince, he had to leave immediately. He could not delay any longer. If you are willing to turn around and help me seize the position of the Crown Prince, I can use all my resources to send you over immediately. At the end of his speech, the first prince finally revealed his fox's tail. Su Yu said without hesitation, "Since I've already made a promise, there's no reason for me to go back on it." The first prince had mixed feelings. How did Princess Rukin manage to win over the sixth prince? Rumble. At that moment, a large group of people rushed over from all directions. The second prince, the third prince, the fourth prince, the fifth prince, and Princess Rukin were among them. Bei Wangchun had broken through the shackles, and the vision of the 9 phases unification had attracted them all. Looking at the ghastly, tragic scene, everyone was shocked. In particular, the lingering fighting aura in the air made them shudder with fear. What kind of level of fighting had taken place here? Even after such a long time, it still made them feel uneasy. "First brother, what happened here? Where's Bei Wangchun? And the rest of the people who were following you?" The fifth prince was shocked that the first prince was alone. How could the first prince have the cheek to reveal the matter in front of everyone? He said vaguely, "I've just arrived. As for Bei Wangchun and the rest, they have other tasks for the time being." The rest of the people did not suspect anything, and they scanned the battlefield around them. Chapter 1831. How was the hunt? Su Yu asked. Princess Rukin raised her chin proudly. "Yes, I hunted more than 800 ancient beasts. Added together, it is equivalent to 3 imperial-level destinies." "What about you?" Princess Rukin's eyes shone brightly. Su Yu swept his gaze across the princes. They looked nonchalant, but in reality, they had pricked up their ears and were secretly eavesdropping. "Not many. I hunted another 2. At that moment, the prince's expressions changed. Including the giant corpse venomous centipede, there were a total of 3. Adding on the ones Princess Rukin had hunted, did that not mean that their combined national destinies were equivalent to 6 imperial-level ancient beasts? In the previous competition, Dongfang Xia had hunted the equivalent of 7 imperial-level ancient beasts, which had allowed him to outshine the other princes and princesses. Princess Rukin's eyes shone brightly when she heard this. She could not help but cover her mouth, her eyes filled with surprise. She was not far from the position of crown prince. "First brother, how many did you hunt?" The fifth prince's expression was solemn as he walked over and asked quietly. "A total of 7, the first prince said calmly. The fifth prince's expression changed drastically, his face filled with joy. "I knew it! First brother is invincible!" The other prince's expressions changed again. 7 did not include the amount of national destinies that the fifth prince had hunted. "What about yours?" the first prince asked. The fifth prince was beaming. "Roughly equivalent to 3 imperial-level ancient beasts." "So few? Only equivalent to my sister? You have twice the number of people," the fifth prince said helplessly. "The opponent's purple demon armored warriors have extraordinary combat abilities. When they work together, they can unleash unimaginable power. Although we have more people, our abilities are uneven. Coupled with the lack of teamwork, that is why, but he didn't think so. In any case, Eldest imperial brother's harvest is more than that of imperial sister and sixth imperial brother combined. The number of kills I lead won't affect the overall situation. The first prince's expression was gloomy. Only he knew that Su Yu did not only have 3. He had hunted down 7 just now. Including the giant corpse venomous centipede, that was 8. Incompetent, the first prince scolded angrily. All of you, get serious and look for the scattered imperial-level ancient beasts, especially an injured evil crow of the double crown emperor level. He had no choice but to spend the next half a month searching with all his might. Just as he was about to lead his men away, a huge bubble suddenly appeared in the blood-colored lake in front of him. An evil aura that caused people to tremble quickly spread in all directions. Su Yu's expression changed as he stared at the corner of the relic. The first prince also looked over, and a thoughtful look appeared in his eyes. Many emperor-level ancient beasts came to guard the ruins of Yu the Great. They did not retreat even if they were killed. What were they guarding? A glimmer of light flickered in his eyes. Right at this moment, the blood-colored lake underwent another huge change. The water level of the lake dropped at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if a bottomless pit had appeared at the bottom of the lake, swallowing all the lake water. After a short while, the ruins of a dilapidated palace lying at the bottom of the lake came into view. What's that? Why is there a palace in the deepest part of the ruins? Many people whispered. The expressions of the princes and their sisters turned solemn at the same time, as if they had thought of something. Su Yu narrowed his eyes. At this moment, that huge sense of familiarity was unprecedentedly strong, reverberating in his heart. There seemed to be a voice calling him to go in. What is it? Su Yu was secretly shocked. He did not remember having any interaction with the birthplace of Yu the Great's ruins. Dragon Palace. At this moment, someone discovered a horizontal board lying at the bottom of the lake. The words Dragon Palace were left on it. Seeing this, the princes' and princesses' expressions became even more solemn. Sensing their abnormality, Su Yu lowered his voice. Sister, what's so special about this palace? Princess Rukun's pretty face was tense and solemn, her tone tinged with fear. I didn't expect the rumors of the empire to be true. What rumors? Every generation of emperors of the imperial family would gather all the members of the imperial family before they passed away and tell them some of their last words. These last words have never been recorded in any history books, Princess Rukun said in a low voice. One of the oral rumors was that when the first emperor of the Diu Empire established civilization, he suppressed an unbelievably powerful enemy. The enemy was suppressed in the deepest part of the ruins of Yu the Great. If his descendants knew of its appearance, they had to escape from the Diu Empire. Do not sacrifice and resist in vain. Su Yu's eyebrows twitched. Even if Dongfang Xia becomes the Triple Crown Emperor? Princess Rukun nodded deeply. That's right. The rumors say that unless the descendant becomes the Quadruple Crown Emperor, everyone else must escape. Quadruple Crown Emperor. Su Yu gasped softly. What exactly was that powerful enemy that was sealed? The abilities of the first emperor of the Diu Empire were not that powerful. He should have only been the Quadruple Crown Emperor. It was the continuous efforts of the later generations that had slowly developed to this stage. How did the Quadruple Crown Emperor suppress such a powerful enemy? Whoosh! Suddenly, a loud panting sound came from the palace of the ruins. When everyone heard it, their bodies stiffened. It felt like an ordinary person standing in front of a giant beast and hearing it breathe. A feeling of insignificance and fear filled everyone's hearts. The princes had long since clenched their fists, their palms sweaty. They had thought it was just a rumor, something that the imperial family had almost forgotten, but it actually existed. The first prince's heart trembled. His intuition told him that the thing in the ruins was extremely dangerous and terrifying. Before it, they might not even be considered ants. For a moment, the entire place was dead silent. They stared at the palace of the ruins as if they were staring at the gates of hell. Caw, caw, all of a sudden, a pitch-black crow landed in the ruins. It was the evil crow that had been injured. It flapped its wings, its lifeless eyes filled with human-like mockery as it stared at Suyu without blinking. It was as if it was staring at a dying man. Were the group of emperor-level ancient beasts guarding the awakening of the thing in the palace of the ruins? Was it awake or not? Had it escaped the suppression of the first emperor? At this moment no one could make up their minds. However, Suyu's eyes shone brightly. He immediately clenched his teeth. I'll go take a look. He could clearly feel the terror of the thing being suppressed. It was not something that someone of his level could resist. Rather than waiting for death, he might as well investigate. I'll go too. Princess Rukan clenched her teeth, leading the purple demon armored warriors in. The first prince suppressed the fear in his heart. This is the greatest enemy of the imperial family. It is useless to escape. We can only go in and take a look. My brothers, I'm afraid the fight for the position of crown prince will have to be temporarily halted. The fate of the empire is more important. If the thing being suppressed awakened, the empire would be destroyed. What was the point of fighting for the position of crown prince? Let's go together. The group of people mustered up their courage and entered the palace of the ruins. The palace was extremely spacious. In the center, there was a giant purple dragon nailed to the ground by 7 swords. The 7 swords were arranged in very mysterious positions, sealing the few dragon veins of the dragon, preventing it from using its dragon power. However, at this moment, more than half of a sword had been pushed out, and it was still slowly being pushed out, its speed increasing. It's the 7 swords dragon destruction formation of the First Lord of the Empire. The eldest imperial prince was immediately overwhelmed with shock. This sword formation has long been lost. Apart from the first holy sage, no one else knows how to use it. This true dragon is the peerless enemy that the first holy sage suppressed. Oh no, one of the swords is about to come out. The 7 swords dragon destruction formation has 7 swords in a row. If one sword is broken, the remaining 6 swords will lose their effect. The second prince's expression changed drastically. At the same time, an evil force that made people grovel rushed out from the purple dragon's body. In the face of this force, most of the intruder's legs turned to jelly, and they knelt on the ground. They did not even have the strength to stand up. Only a few people could persist. Hee, are you the descendant of Dongfang Zun? Suddenly, a pair of huge yellow lantern-like eyes on the purple dragon's head opened abruptly. Its cruel and pitiful gaze swept across them. Congratulations, you came at the right time. I'm going to use your blood as a blood sacrifice for me to be reborn. 2/3 of the sword had been pushed out. The first prince's face was full of fear. He gritted his teeth and stood up straight under the terrifying pressure. His forehead was covered in sweat. Evil dragon, don't even think about escaping from the First Lord's suppression. The first prince growled and walked toward the evil dragon. It seemed like he wanted to stab the sword back into the dragon's body. Hee, you said that Dongfang Zun suppressed me? Ha 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 ha, what a joke. He's just an ant. How can he suppress me? The evil dragon raised its head and laughed. It seems like your first lord lied. He didn't tell you that you're just scum eliminated by the blood crystal race. Blood crystal race? The few members of the imperial family were confused. They had never heard of such a race in this world. A bunch of pitiful worms. I'll tell you the truth. The first lord that you speak of was merely a servant of mine in the past. He took the opportunity when I was being suppressed and broke free from my control to establish the so-called Dew Empire. What a joke. Do you really believe that an ant is qualified to seal me? Hearing this, the few princes were shocked. They could not believe what they had just heard. Humph. Don't listen to his lies. He's just stalling for time. Let's go together and stab the sword back. The first prince saw through the other party's stalling plan. He did not believe that the ancestor he respected was a servant. The princes also charged toward the ancient sword without hesitation. No matter what, they had to subdue the true dragon first. He, ignorant and fearless ants. I'll show you. It suddenly spoke in the dragon language that no one could understand. Suddenly, the first prince, second prince, third prince, fourth prince, fifth prince, and Princess Rooken all held their heads. Their expressions were painful. The fifth prince, who was not mentally strong, screamed on the spot and fainted from the pain. The other princes were not much better. They all let out heart-wrenching screams. Chapter 1832. The purple true dragon's gaze swept across everyone, filled with mockery. However, when his gaze landed on one of the princes, he exclaimed in surprise, "Why are you fine?" Among them, only a silver-haired youth stood with his hands clasped behind his back. There was no sign of pain on his face. "You are not the descendant of that slave." The purple true dragon was stunned for a moment, then laughed. "The descendants of that slave are getting worse with each generation. The current generation is being cuckolded and they don't even know it. Ridiculous, ridiculous." In the midst of the pain, the princes were fully focused on resisting the pain that originated from their bloodline. They didn't care about the true dragon's words at all. On the other hand, the people who came over looked at each other in dismay, and their expressions changed. The silver-haired youth was, of course, Suyu. The only trace of the Eastern royal family's bloodline in his body had already been consumed during the Imperial Clan Court's Dragon Vat test. Because of this, he was not controlled by the purple true dragon. "Don't spout nonsense. I just have thick skin, so I'm not afraid of pain." Suyu smiled calmly. As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped on the ground with the tip of his foot and swiftly landed on the back of the purple true dragon. He grabbed the sword that was about to be blocked. The purple true dragon growled, "Brat, this is between me and that servant. It has nothing to do with you. You don't have to become enemies with the dragon clan for them." Su Yu's expression was calm. "Zhenlong? Was it that amazing? I can even fight against the epic-making dragons of your dragon clan, let alone an evil dragon like you." The people who followed him were dumbfounded. The sixth prince had experience fighting against a true dragon? Hey, that's a true dragon. According to legend, true dragons were extraordinarily formidable and innately possessed the natural talent to control the laws. Every single move they made could affect the grand Tao of the world, and they were extremely terrifying. He had fought against a true dragon and was still alive. Are you serious? Have you seen that epic-making dragon before? Where? The purple true dragon was shocked. Suyu chuckled. "I will send you to see him." As he spoke, he pressed his palm down and the sword pierced a little deeper. Roar. The true dragon roared in pain, and a large amount of evil energy rose from its body. It roared, "Human ant, you dare to make an enemy of the dragon clan. You will die a horrible death." The dragon blood in his body surged as he forcefully resisted the ancient sword. Unexpectedly, the ancient sword rose up against the force and was slowly repelled out of the body. "Law of giant strength," Suyu said calmly. His body was surrounded by the rules of power, and the power in his hands increased tenfold. The true dragon roared in pain again. The peak overlords kneeling on the ground were filled with excitement. Long live the sixth prince! He single-handedly suppressed the evil dragon. How domineering was that? Suyu pressed his palm down once again, and the last third of it was pushed in. The 7 swords returned to their positions and pinned him to the ground, rendering him unable to move. "Ah! Human, I, the Mahayana evil dragon, swear that I will never let you off." The evil dragon hated Suyu to the core. With great difficulty, he finally had the hope of escaping, but who knew that a meddlesome passerby would appear halfway? Everything would be for naught. Suyu stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze cold and indifferent. "Now, let's talk about who touched that ancient sword." After 100 million years, The Seven Swords dragon slaying formation was as stable as a rock. How could it be so coincidental that the sword formation would weaken just as they were fighting for the fate of the nation? The evil dragon breathed heavily through its nostrils as it slowly closed its eyes and remained silent. Su Yu smiled coldly. Let me guess. It should be the Corpse Clan, right? These words were like a bomb exploding in everyone's ears. The Corpse Clan? How did they sneak in? That's impossible. Everyone who enters has been double-checked by the prince and the gray-robed emperor. How could the Corpse Clan sneak in? The evil dragon's eyes, which were about to close, opened abruptly, and then pretended as if nothing had happened. Sure enough, Su Yu's gaze was cold as he coldly glanced at the hundreds of people present. When he found out that Yu Shanshan was a corpse hidden in Mali, Princess Rukin, he had guessed that there might be others among the people of the other princes. Now, the strange changes in the Dragon Palace confirmed Su Yu's guess. Let me guess again. The purpose of releasing the evil dragon was to let it come out to fight against Dongfang Xia, so that the Corpse Clan could take advantage of the chaos to invade, right? He was very familiar with the tricks of the Corpse Clan. At the same time, you killed all the princes and princesses who came to the ruins to fight for the fate of the nation, right? The answer he got was a pair of horrified and bewildered eyes. If my guess is correct, at this moment you are among this group of people, aren't you? The crowd was in an uproar. They were suspicious of each other, and fear and panic were growing in their hearts like weeds. But none of the Corpse Clan would admit it, and Su Yu could not tell which one of them was a Corpse Clan member in human skin. Su Yu sat cross-legged on the dragon's back and said calmly, "Your purpose is to release the Zhenlong. As long as I stay here, you must fly out, unless you give up on the mission." He responded with inaction. The ones who were in a passive position were the Corpse Clan. His words completely moved the hidden Corpse Clan. Yes, if this continued, the ruins would close in half a month, and it would be impossible for them to enter again. If they failed the mission, they would die when they returned. Kill him. He's just the sixth prince of the Peak Overlord realm. How powerful can he be? A few half-step emperors exchanged looks. In the blink of an eye, 3 shadows streaked across the sky. They, who had been stunned by the Zhenlong's pressure and could not move, were suddenly unaffected. The evil dragon's lips curled into a cold smile. "Ants, I told you to get lost, so you can go to hell." It was the one who released the pressure on the Corpse Clan. Su Yu, who had been indifferent, suddenly changed his expression. 3 half-step emperors. How did my royal brothers select them? Such important half-step emperors are from the Corpse Clan. His shocked expression was on point. Everyone was shocked. It's over. How could the 6th prince be a match for 3 half-step emperors? But I heard that he had the combat power of a half-step emperor. That was in a one-on-one situation. How many are we fighting now? Moreover, the Corpse Clan is famous for being invulnerable. Ordinary divine techniques cannot harm them. We're finished. Su Yu hurriedly pulled out the Azura sword and fought with the 3 half-step emperors. In the first exchange of blows, he had fallen into a dangerous situation, and his soul had almost been destroyed twice. In a few breaths' time, he would have died. There's no need to hide anymore. Let's attack together and kill him first. 8 figures flew out from the crowd. Some were peak overlords, while others were half-step emperors. Seeing that the outcome had been decided, they all jumped out to kill Su Yu and claim credit. However, the panic in Su Yu's eyes gradually disappeared and was replaced by calmness. There might be 1 or 2 fish that slipped through the net, but it doesn't matter. It's enough to kill these few. His body suddenly burst forth with a cold light, the Azura sword bursting with the power to cut the heavens. Heaven-cutting sword. The powerful sword swept across the surroundings. The 3 Corpse Clan members who were suppressing him were caught off guard and were cut into 3 pieces. Sure enough, there was no blood flowing in their bodies, only a thick aura of death. The sudden change shocked the Corpse Clan members who had pounced forward, causing them to break out in a cold sweat and freeze in the air. Even their ferocious expressions froze. Suyu revealed an elegant smile that was as bright as the moon in the 9 heavens. "Are you very surprised?" They were clearly the Corpse Clan that everyone respected, but at this moment, several of the Corpse Clan members were shivering, as if the silver-haired human in front of them was the real Corpse Clan. "Run!" One of the Corpse Clan members shouted first, and the 8 Corpse Clan members turned and ran. At this moment, they only hated the fact that the Corpse Emperor did not give them an extra leg when he transformed them. Seeing that they had escaped from the range of the sword, Suyu smiled coldly and waved his palm. "Arrows!" The 9 jade spiritual pearl flashed, and a giant bow fell into his palm. He pulled his arms, and an arrow shot out. A beam of light passed through, and a Corpse Clan member was smashed to pieces. 8 consecutive beams of light. No matter how far the Corpse Clan members ran, they were all pierced by the beam of light, without exception. Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. 5 half-martial emperors and 8 peak overlords had been brutally killed just like that. They really did not want to use the dark and cruel term brutally killed to describe the 6th prince. But that scene was indeed brutally killed. The only difference was that they were ecstatic. Brutally killed well. The Corpse Clan members were cruel and merciless. How many people had died tragically at their hands, and how many had become their food? Among them were women, children, and lonely old people. No matter how painful their deaths were, it was still a great satisfaction. Putting the Tiani bow on the dragon's back, Suyu looked around at the crowd. Let's wait for the ruins to close. Compared to the fight for the throne, suppressing the evil dragon was more important. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like the crisis had been averted. Unfortunately, the wind would not stop blowing even if the tree desired peace. The evil dragon below slowly opened its eyes, and a hint of pity flashed through its eyes. Suyu entered a meditative state to train, but his heart was thinking. Ever since he had entered the ruins, that sense of familiarity had come over him. Now, he had found the source. It was the evil dragon beneath him. He was even more confused. He had never interacted with the evil dragon before, so where did that sense of familiarity come from? While he was thinking, Suyu's hair suddenly stood on end. An inexplicable sense of danger lingered in his heart. Even the threads of fate were fluctuating violently. He had always been decisive. Sensing that something was amiss, he immediately rolled up his sleeves, bringing all the princes and the people with him out of the ruins. Rumble! A blood-red beam of light descended from the sky, destroying the ruins. Only the evil dragon's purple evil energy was able to withstand the blood-red beam of light. You can predict my attack in advance? Interesting. A young man in a fiery red robe suddenly appeared in the sky above the ruins. The young man's face was cold and evil, and he had 3 strange gourds tied to his waist. Seeing him, Suyu's pupils shrank slightly. The red-robed young man, the double-crown emperor who had taken the dragon blood. Who was he? True Lord Fire Dragon, you are too late, the evil dragon said coldly. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed slightly. They knew each other? Suyu seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed again. True Lord Fire Dragon, the double-crown emperor, could it be the double-crown fire dragon that had suddenly appeared in the Dew Empire while being hunted by Dongfang Xia? How did he sneak into the ruins of the Dew Empire? Didn't they say that only those below the martial emperor level were allowed to enter? Why was he not affected? Also, Dongfang Xia was hunting him. How did he escape without Dongfang Xia noticing? The strength of this fire dragon was not something that Bei Wangchun, who had combined the 9 symbols into one, could compare to. He had only reached the level of the double-crown emperor. But this fire dragon had seriously injured the gray-robed martial emperor, and only his soul had escaped. True Lord Fire Dragon lowered his head and said mockingly, "Haha, isn't this the famous Lord Evil Dragon? What happened to you? Why are you pinned here?"